Good evening, everyone, and welcome once again to another wonderful evening of conversations, libations, and hanging out with the chat. Today is going to be a purely just chatting day, so let's get that BGM going here and turn off the intro. Oh, it's loud. Not have that loud. My good old chatting BGM. Yeah, I got myself a pineapple gamer energy drink. But I want to stay awake. I want to stay awake tonight. I don't want to be like Dragon. I want to keep my energy focused on the chat and keep my spirits high. So I got an energy drink. It's not. Oh, I just switched my. What's in the chalice? Yeah, it is a pineapple. What would have happened? I just slipped down the chair. Here, let's fix that. Yeah, that's the juice tonight. There's like a half shot of rum in it, okay? It's not enough to make me, it's probably a DUI, but I'm not going nowhere. I wanted to mix up something, but it's not crazy. It's an energy drink with rum, terrible. I'm gonna sleep like trash tonight. I'm gonna sleep like absolute garbage. I don't have any, I thought about a glass of wine, but I didn't want to make myself sleepy. I wanted to stay awake for this, so. How you doing, Bichot? Yeah, no worries. I'm not gonna drink, because that would be bad, because then I would be stupid. I would become stupid. And while I'm very funny, we got JD in the chat. How's it going? I'm gonna drag you into the audio. Let me do that real quick. We're gonna put you in the on-stream chat, so okay. You're muted for a second. I'm just gonna say hey to everybody, then we'll get started with tonight's feature presentation. Yeah, we're gonna do another classroom. I haven't done a classroom in a little while. I was gonna do a D&D one. I kind of put that off for a couple weeks because I didn't have time to prepare the presentation the weekend that I was gonna do it, so I was like, I'll put that off. I always get too ambitious with these lectures. And then I decide that I'm gonna do this lecture, and then it's like, wait a minute, I didn't have time to make slides, but JD made the slides. And then I just added some. So, see, that's why I collab with people, because they can do all the work. No. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be a great conversation. Before I begin our feature presentation, I just want to say, Gagura graduating tonight, huh? Those of you that don't follow, we've been chatting about it on the Blizzard. We're probably like, what the fuck are these people talking about? It can't, there's nothing else that it could possibly be. I don't even know if there's anything to discuss. I mean, 10:30, if you're a VTuber fan of all VTuber fans, yeah, yep. She's active again on her PL. She'll be streaming with Doobie in no time, I'm sure. That doesn't make me sad. That's sad. I felt like feel like a thing that's gonna happen regardless of what we decide to do, so I'm not even gonna devote any more airtime to it, I don't think, but I think there's probably a lot of people that really want to make a lot of hay about it, because they get, a lot of the traction that I got, like, from my early YouTube traction is because I talked about, like, the Selen Tatsuki situation with Niji Sanji, with a guest, and with Ariat specifically. And that was like, a lot of people were interested in our take on that situation. But I never signed up to be like a hot VTuber drama take person. I just like to talk about events and stories and design and stuff in general, and happened to be a situation where I had a really good perspective, with Ariat had a really good perspective on the situation. And this is a very similar stream to that, but this is not about VTubing, it's about video games. So we're just gonna talk about video games all night. Not like she hasn't made her bag. She'll probably be around. Yeah, of course. Oh, she's coming back, guys. She's coming right back. I think that Doobie was a little burnt out. I've kind of been following, because Doobie was my Oshi, like, prior. So I've kind of been following, like, her certain situation. I do think she was a little burned out. So I think, I don't know what Guro is going to jump right back in and be as active as, like, my actual Oshi Mint is, or if she's going to be, like, quiet for a little while, but, I'll support her wherever she decides to do. That's pretty much all I have to say about it. I don't think unless she comes out and says that she was mistreated or something, and then that somebody besides me will make hay out of that. But I always feel that you should support the performers, support the entertainers, support the people whose work you love and who makes you happy and gives you the good feelings on the inside. And, if they happen to change jobs and move to a different company and some IP gets shuffled in the process of doing that, it is what it is, because IP is, it gets moved around from place to place and things become complicated where we talk about IP and we talk about, who owns what character when, but they can't own you as a person. So, I own my IP right now, and if I end up getting hired by some other company and they give me some different IP, then I'll still own this one because this is me. But yeah, that's what it is. So, I know we had a lot of chatter about it, a little bit on the TL, so I figured I would just kind of, say my piece about it, which is, I wish her well. I have a feeling that whatever announcement stream she does is going to be at about 10:30, I think, my time. And it's going to be real short, because I think Mube's was really short. Whether this means problems for, Yago in the future, they have not returned my calls. They did not accept my audition reel, so, I'm nobody. I don't All right, that's enough of the VTuber talk for the time being. I'm going to go ahead and unmute our guest and hopefully get your ping on the screen there. So once we are ready to I'm going to jump into that voice chat. You're afraid of my power? I know. Okay, so JD, you were live, I think. I didn't even do an audio test before this, so let's see. Let's hear you. Say hello to the people.
Hello, everyone.
Hey.
I need to mute that stream. Give me a minute.
Yeah, you're coming in loud and clear because now we're going to be on the call. And in fact, what I'm going to do is share the slide screen with you. I'm going to do that now so that there's no lag between the presentation and your So let's just share that screen real quick.
All right.
It is going to go live for you in just a second. And then when you can tell me when to advance slides. If you have me advancing slides, very nice and clear. Very nice and clear. They're afraid of my power. Right, they are afraid of my power. They are. They don't want a person of vampiric descent. They tried once with Vesper War. It didn't take.
Terrible, the prejudice.
I know, it's horrifying.
My Discord nickname is Vampire Stan often, and that is based on my long history of arguing about tabletop RPGs. And there was a very strong movement at the early 2000s to really go after Vampire the Masquerade and say it was a bad game and that it wasn't well designed. And I was always the guy being like, but it's so fun. Have you considered that maybe it's fun?
It's fun.
And
so you're literally a stand for Vampire. That's
Vampire. That's exactly right.
Got it. Perfect. I will tell you that Vampire was probably one of my first TTRPGs.
For a certain generation, it really is. And I will say, especially for women. It was a first RPG for a lot of women. When I was in high school, we played a wide variety of them. And then a girl came to our club and said, I'd like to try this vampire game. And it was the first girl ever to show an interest. So we were like, okay, we're playing Vampire. We're doing it.
I do feel like World of Darkness was a gateway drug for a lot of ladies to get into TTRPG because it has that gothic romance aspect that other TTRPGs were lacking. Like D&D doesn't have that necessarily in the same capacity. You can force it to do that, but it's not out of the box.
If you look at the inspirations for D&D, like the Appendix N books, they're really talking about stuff that was published 20 and 30 years earlier, whereas Vampire was just Anne Rice is publishing the most insane vampire stuff you can imagine right now.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's not, some of the earlier inspos on D&D is stuff like Vance, not the vice president, but the author.
Yeah.
Right. And Yeah, and what was that based on? All those really old stories. I mean, Conan obviously was an inspiration for D&D, but Anne Rice was a big inspiration for Yeah, Vampire
It
definitely
was the primary one, I would say. That one,
Yeah.
and maybe like the Lost Boys movie.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe some other in that time frame. Anyway, I can go on about tabletop RPG stuff
The
as
Gray
much as I can about
Mouser.
anything else.
That's it. Yeah.
There
Well,
you go,
we
the Gray
talk about
Mouser.
tabletop RPGs in this chat all the time as well. We have a dedicated channel for that on the Discord. Thank you for the subscription, baby. Appreciate you. Yeah, the Gray Mouser. That was the whole other thing. So I could talk about TTRPGs for a super duper long time. I've been involved. Actually, let's do this. Why don't you do a proper introduction? We talked a little around here, but tell us about who you are and why you're here.
Yeah, so I go by JCDWritesRPG because on Twitch I'm usually in writing streams and co-working streams, working on tabletop RPG or computer RPG stuff. I live in the desert Southwest, and I'm probably on the older side of people on Twitch, I would say. And you and I ran into each other, I think, first on a commentary Discord that we were both in, and we were both talking about the same topic.
Right.
And we thought, boy, wouldn't it be cool to put something together and come here and talk about it?
And do a presentation. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. My hobbies are games of all kind, from tabletop to video games. I love chess. I'm terrible at it, but I love it. That's kind of been my hobby for a while, and so I'm happy to come in and chat about it.
Nice. And since you are now on the screen, on screen, can you explain your PFP as well, if you want to?
Yes, that's Marshall McLuhan, the Canadian media theorist. I highly recommend people read him. He's an absolute genius at describing the internet in his book Understanding Media, which came out in 1968.
Crazy.
Just there's a lot of stuff in it where you're like, I don't know, I don't necessarily think I agree about the newspaper or television, but everything he's saying is 100% correct for the internet. So that's why I have a Marshall McLuhan PFP.
Extremely prescient writing. And I will say that hanging out with you and chatting with you a little bit about some of the stuff, I feel like you're in the right community because we're all a bunch of intellectual game overthinkers here. That's
yes.
Yeah. I have a master's degree and I'm a VTuber vampire on the internet.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. What was your master's in, if you don't mind my asking?
Digital media. So
digital media.
So
Nice.
I have a master's degree in media. My focus was on gaming in particular. But I looked at it from an academic standpoint and did a master's thesis on Dungeons and Dragons. All that kind of shit.
Great.
All that kind of shit. So and in the process I learned to code, and that's what I do for a living. But getting to do the more academic, high-minded analysis stuff is kind of my happy place. I just happen to land on what's the practical skill that I can take away from this degree? Oh, I can code. I started out doing JavaScript, and then I was doing Unity, and then I was in C# for a while, and I'm still in C#, and I'm doing Python, and that's what I do. But I'm
still learning. So I have done a few visual novels
nice.
In sort of the fan space.
I love the
and so I am exactly. And I'm learning RenPy for the first time. So RenPy, I guess,
nice.
The Python.
Yes, I have touched that briefly. And I do want to make something in that someday, although I feel like I would gravitate toward hentai pretty quickly if I were to do that.
Yeah.
I don't want to make hentai.
I honestly I have no Python experience at all. My only programming experience was as an undergraduate when I took one class and they were still teaching us COBOL.
Ooh, old school.
Very, very old. Yeah. I took one semester of it and thought, okay, this ain't for me. I'm gonna do other things with my time. But so I'm learning something that everybody else, knows instinctively, and they're like, oh, Python, it's easy. And I'm like, okay.
There needs to be more high quality porn in the world. That's okay.
That's right.
No, good luck. If you do anything with RenPy, let me know if you need Python help or anything like that,
I might take you up on that. I'm rolling through it. It's one of those things where The first few that I didn't fully write the script before I started actually putting it into the program. So I did one in Visual Novel Maker, I did one in Tyranno Builder, and doing it twice, I now know you need to have that script like done. It doesn't need to
Yeah.
be perfect, but you gotta have it done before you start putting it in.
Oh, like the actual text of the visual novel.
Exactly. Like who
Yeah, you
says
kind of
what,
can't go from
which
scratch.
characters enter. Yeah.
My plan for that, not that I started doing this, except I actually did start doing this, but my is to prototype with Twine.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Twine gives you that branching structure that you can use
Totally.
to, then pick up on and
Twine
make
is
your
so
video.
cool.
Yeah.
I entered a couple of jam games with Twine.
Oh, nice, yeah.
And it's very fun. Very fun.
Yeah, just going into the builder with no plan does not really work out. I think I tried that once, like just to mess around with Renpy, and I was immediately like, I have no idea where I want the story to go, and it doesn't really work. So yeah, just I gave up on that project pretty quickly. Yeah.
Just like knowing what characters entering and leaving at what point and what the dialogue is. I tend to be a very description heavy writer when I'm not in a visual novel, and so like visual novel is so much dialogue. Like it's all in the dialogue.
Yes.
And so it's makes it very it's a good stretch for me. It helps me flex some writing muscles that I haven't flexed in a long time.
What's your favorite VN that you have played recently?
Well, my favorite VN of all time, the one that I'm a complete fanatic and totally annoying about, and I'm sure the chat can guess just by me saying that, is I'm an Umineko guy. Umineko, When They Cry.
I haven't played it, actually. I probably should.
Oh, it's fantastic. It's extremely long. It does not have any, I don't want to say it has no choices. It has a choice.
Oh, a choice.
There is a choice. It's a fantastic choice. It's so incredible. And yes, thank you, Nox Seeger. I'm glad Umineko has at least one fan in the chat. Okay, I'll tell you a little bit about it, just in general.
Sure.
It's a classic murder mystery of the sort of Agatha Christie variety. It's highly based on the novel And Then There Were None.
I love that. That's a cool book. Yeah, okay, I'm into it.
And so like there's this isolated island. A very wealthy family comes together for their annual meeting, and one by one they are horribly killed in an occult manner, allegedly by Beatrice, the Golden Witch that has haunted the island and blessed the family for many years, and now the bill is coming due. As you go through it, you can read it as just very much as like a fantasy story. Yeah, there's an all-powerful witch on this island, and she's killing all these people with magic. And that's you kind of get lulled into that because there's so many like fantasy or occult or supernatural VNs. And then in kind of like there's an interlude between chapters. One of the characters, all of the characters, including the ones that died, are like, oh, well, thanks for playing, thanks for reading, etc. And they're like chit-chatting about like what happened in kind of like an out of character manner. And one of the characters is like, wow, it sure is crazy that Beatrice killed all of us with magic. And another one of the characters says, what are you talking about? There wasn't any magic. No magic happened in this story at all. Everybody was killed by a person using mundane means. I'm like, what?
Oh boy. Okay, I gotta play this. I've been a fan lately of Slay the Princess. That one's really good, but it's very choicey, very branchy.
Yes, that one has a whole bunch of branches, and yeah, this one it's the only video game I've ever played where I didn't feel like I was playing against a programmer, but I'm playing against a character in the game.
That's cool.
Like I feel like I'm matching wits with this fictional witch.
That's sweet.
Who's really trying to skunk me.
I think I would probably play the BN first just to feel the original out, and then maybe try the anime after that just to see what the adaptation is.
Play the BN. The anime is not worth watching in my opinion.
Okay, that's fair.
It's very much more in depth. There's kind of like, it's not really a time loop aspect, but there's lots of different ways that you can read it. But like chapter 2 is kind of the same thing again, but the murders happen a slightly different way. And so every chapter of the first 4, which are the question arcs, they describe kind of a different way that Beatrice could have committed these murders with magic, of course.
Okay, I see.
And then the answer arcs are the last 4 chapters that more or less address the first 4 and kind of give you enough hints to find out, like, okay, there's really a lot more going on.
Chat's
It truly
asking
is
about Higurashi. I don't know that one either. Is that the same series?
Yeah, it's from the same creator.
Oh, okay.
And actually the chief writer, and I guess I call him the auteur of the series, he uses the pen name Ryukashio7.
Okay.
And he is currently the chief writer and narrative designer for Silent Hill F, which is coming out very, very soon.
Very excited about that. It looks really cool. I'm very yeah.
Amazing. I always joked that like the Umineko fandom is about to parachute into Silent Hill with a bunch of spreadsheets to explain why none of the monsters are real.
That kind of segues really nicely into our slides, because we have a lot to talk about when it comes to Silent Hill as well as other things. We got onto this topic, and just as a brief, JD made most of these slides. I put in a handful because I had a couple things that I wanted to talk about. So like a lot of this I'll be just like interjecting, and when I get to part that I added, and then we'll just talk about whatever we want to talk about. But like, also this is like a very freewheeling conversation. So anybody in chat, if you have any questions or just want to say shit, like we're just here until we have to quit. Which I don't know if you have a hard stop. I don't. I can go all night if necessary, as long as my throat doesn't give out. Yeah,
I'm with you. With you. Okay. I've got some water here. I'm relaxed. It's a good day at work. All good to go.
You know what? I had a good day at work too. It's a nice thing is that we get an Easter break coming up, so everything is chill and is gonna be laid back. Not everybody. Some people were rushing to get deadlines done, but I'm like copacetic. So let's go ahead. We're gonna talk about authentic America, which is to say, we're talking about how video games represent America, which is like a big topic, and we got into a really good conversation about it based on I don't even remember what slide is next, so I'm just gonna like go slide to slide, and we'll.
Yeah, there were a few that you and I thought were like really indicative of the topic, one way or another.
Yeah. So sorry for this little exit full screen thing. So many games are set in America, but they don't always seem authentic American. And what games have we noticed that are inauthentic, and what things have we noticed that are very authentic? And it does sometimes depend on if the game was developed by Americans. But not always, because sometimes.
But not always.
Yeah, right. Sometimes not.
As someone that lives in the desert Southwest, I'm often like befuddled when someone who lives in one of the quote unquote 5 real American cities like makes some commentary about how America is, and I'm like, oh no, no sir.
That's not how it is. And
that's not how it is at all.
Most people who watch my stream know this, but for if you don't know, I'm in the Philadelphia area, and I have spent a lot of time in Ohio, Pennsylvania, Michigan, primarily in my life.
Oh, yes.
So I'm talking about the Midwest and the East Coast. There's a reason I have a whole section here on Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, because it is the most fascinating city to ever show in a video game. and
you were able to identify many that did it, which I was very surprised by, so I'm excited to get to that part.
It shows up a lot for some reason in varying levels of authenticity.
All right, yes, let's go on then. So the things that we're skipping are things that are based on properties already set in America, like your South Park is it's American. Simpsons live in quote unquote Springfield.
Yeah.
The CSI games are in Vegas, but like those are already based on another portrayal, and then things that are like on a football field in America. Now, don't get me wrong. Some of those games are incredible at showing a real building with incredible detail that really exists. And they're dedicated to authenticity, like in various ways. But it's not really a choice about it's not really an authentic choice. It's more of a photographic representation, if that makes sense.
Right, exactly. We'll talk a little bit about some of the games, but like, for example, if it's like a stadium, there's not much to talk. There's not much to talk about. Like it's a stadium,
Or like there's in one of the Hitman games, I think it's Blood Money. Like he goes into a theater in Baltimore to kill someone, and it's like, okay. It looks like a theater, but like theaters look a lot of different ways in America. They came up with this fictional one for Baltimore. Like there's really not much to say about it. They made it for their own purposes, and
Yeah.
it's too small to get a strong impression from.
Yeah. Games that started our conversation. Well, we were talking a little bit about this game that just came out, which I haven't played yet, but
Yeah.
which does look like it comes really incredibly from the heart and is very authentic and is woke. Go ahead. Go. Sorry.
No, that's funny. I definitely do think, one thing that I've mentioned when in the Discord and other times is that you can really tell when a game comes from the heart, and it's not always the case. Sometimes you have a committee of 300 people all working on a game, and that's really hard to do. So they often come from smaller outfits. They often have smaller scope or scale. South of Midnight, from what I've seen, again, not having played it myself, but it kind of started the conversation because it was truly about a regional folklore.
Women.
Like this is, yeah. They were trying to.
Yeah.
They're trying to talk about like not just a region, but like the legends of that region and the types of things that they fantasize about or have stories that they've shared for many years, and those are pretty special. Like I look at it, the plot line or some of the cutscenes that I've seen up on YouTube, and it's like it's new to me. It's like nothing I would have ever heard growing up in the desert like I do.
Thank you. Sorry, that's how we know if something's woke, because we drop down the woke mob chat.
The woke mob. Nice.
It's a running gag on my stream because I always make fun of people, like, as you know, because we've talked about it before, but like the people who are like, it's woke. Well, when this trailer first got dropped for this game, my immediate thought, first of all, was like, this is a small game from a small developer that's not gonna do, fucking GTA numbers, right? And because of the black protagonist, people will say that that's why it's not succeeding. Like, I could have predicted that. But like I think on its own terms, it's doing quite well because it is a smaller scale title, right? It's like a 12-hour game.
Totally agree. And I would even say that the type of game that it is a sort of exploratory, folkloric game. These are not standard. And I think if you go to the next slide, we talk about some of the traits of South of Midnight. So there's a lot of fantasy games that have different types of folklore in it, but a lot of times it's European folklore of like dragons and knights and swords and stuff. True. That's all folkloric, but this is American folklore, and specifically to the southern folklore. I think that's really interesting. It's not going to be as widely popular because it's not as widely shared. I've heard amazing things about the music. I'm holding back from like rushing out to listen to it because I really want to experience it as part of the game. But we'll talk a little more about music as we go along. But regional music can go a long way to making something feel authentic and express something authentic.
I love it when even like a bad, cheap indie movie uses local bands to soundtrack the movie. It makes the whole thing like come alive and feel like it's from a place and time. Even if it's like a bad movie, you're like, oh man, the soundtrack of this actually rocks. And I feel like if this game is using like local musicians and regional music to support that concept, it makes it all the more alive, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. What I was thinking of when I was listening to the trailer was the Carolina Chocolate Drops, which is one of my favorite, specifically a subgenre called old time music.
Oh, nice.
Which is a country / bluegrass sort of subgenre. And the Carolina Chocolate Drops are one of the best bands working in that space right now. So it's old times in style, but it's all original music that's written today. Like it's not written in 1920. It just sounds like it was written in 1920.
What is it about? I know what you did last summer that's relevant, VB. I'm curious. Is it like about that soundtrack as well? I think of like at some point on the Discord, I'm going to show Guns of El Chupacabra, which is a terrible movie, but it's a wonderful movie at the same time because it has all these local bands. There's a couple other movies that I think we've watched that have been like absolute trash, but like had really good music in them, and it's just because they just grab a bunch of local bands to sing music. The American Band is a bunch of homeschool kids that did band. Oh, that's so cool! Yeah, I love that. I love when they get local people to get involved. That's great.
That's awesome. They were not told what kind of movie it was. Well, you know,
So
sometimes you need
game.
a marching band.
Tell me about this game.
Okay,
I don't know
Lurking
nothing.
Horror. So the Lurking Horror is one of the games that I played when I was growing up.
Mm-hmm.
You can do the math as to how old I am, but it's from 1987. It's from Infocom, who were I would say, industry leaders in adventure games and specifically text adventures at the time.
We did a whole text adventure lecture on the stream, so.
Oh, nice, nice. So the Lurking Horror was one of the first, I would say, in the era of Infocom where they actually tried to start telling stories. So Infocom's first games, like the Zork trilogy, and to a certain extent, even like Enchanter, were more just like puzzle delivery games. Like you're exploring around this creepy area and you're finding puzzles and items and trying to solve them. And then Infocom entered kind of its second era where they're trying to actually tell stories in games. Like, what is it to actually make an interactive fiction? If you look at the lower right of the box there, you can even see interactive fiction.
There it is, interactive fiction. Yeah.
By Dave Lebling. They were one of the first to actually put an author on their games because they're trying to be like, this is a novel. This is a Dave Lebling interactive novel. And you'll play Infocom games and you'll get a favorite author, you'll follow their work, you'll start to see stylized, commonalities and so on. So it's in that context that they create the Lurking Horror, which is a Lovecraftian horror game. And what I love about it is that it's set in a equivalent to MIT. Massachusetts Institute of Technology.
Right. Okay. That makes sense.
In the game, it's called GUE Tech because GUE was one of the acronyms that Infocom loved to use. And it is extremely well. Lebling attended MIT in the 70s before he left to join Infocom. Very common sort of game designer experience of this era was me and my friends learned how to build computers and program them in the 70s. Now it's the 80s and there's going to be a microcomputer in the home. We're going to make computer games based on our, we're going to all get together and be a company. That's how Infocom kind of arose.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense, yeah.
And so Lebling comes in and he says, and he's sort of the lead on this project, and he's a huge H.P. Lovecraft fan. Mm-hmm. So he wants to write a Lovecraftian horror adventure set in essentially MIT. Mm. He has in this game, you can find landmarks that correspond directly to landmarks at MIT. Like there's a room called the Infinite Corridor, which is actually a very famous location at MIT because of the way there's this extremely long, skinny building with a whole bunch of offices off of it, and the sun comes down the corridor at a particular time of day, and causes all of these weird visual effects. They also have the famous steam tunnels under MIT.
Yes, right.
Those are a major part of this. Mm-hmm. He even expresses, and this is one thing I think is interesting and funny. If you go to the next page, there are inside jokes from MIT that are like from the 70s that are a little out of date by the time 1987 rolls around, but he puts them in anyway.
Because it's funny to him. Right? Like it's just, exactly. It's people.
It's so real. Exactly. Yeah. And it's so real to it fits and it makes the whole game feel like it's an authentic piece, even though it's not up to the current day of 1987. So I'll give you an example. One of the characters in the Lurking Horror is called the Hacker. Now, today we think of a hacker as someone who breaches electronic security. But back in the day, in the 70s, a hacker was someone who breached physical security. So they would covertly obtain and copy keys. They would locate combinations for combination locks.
Okay.
They would map out steam tunnels or sort of behind the scenes hallways that they weren't supposed to be able to get into, crawl spaces, attics. Remember, this is Massachusetts, so everything is old and has all of these undocumented like spaces that you can get into.
Yeah, you ever been to Boston?
No, never.
You ever been to MIT?
I have.
Well, you have been to MIT.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. It's like right outside of Boston. It's in the.
Oh yeah.
It's very. I mean, we both been there. It's very fucking convoluted to navigate this place.
It's extremely convoluted, and of course that makes it great for interactive fiction game because it's like a maze.
Exactly.
And
it's really confusing.
And the hacker, of course, has a giant ring of keys, and you have to do various tasks for the hacker to get him to bestow a key upon you in order to get access to different things.
This sounds like fun. I've never played this. This sounds like a lot of fun.
It's extremely fun. There's, as with all Infocom games, there's like one or two very obtuse puzzles that are kind of hard to get through, but overall, it is a blast to play, and it is truly a horror game. Like, it is really trying to scare you with its text and with its situation. So I really loved Lurking Horror. And when we were talking about authentic games, I just thought of Dave Lebling sitting at a computer in 1987, thinking back to his college days and being like, all right, well, there was this building, I'll put that one in.
Yeah, it's exactly like writing from life, writing what you know, basically.
Exactly.
KRZ. This game is so melancholy. It fills me with so many feelings. I don't know.
I love
how
this
to talk
game.
about this game. Yeah. Well,
it's
the story I always tell about this game is that I used to have a cat. I don't anymore. She passed away a couple years ago. And anytime I would play this game, she was like suddenly really interested in it for some reason. I think because it's like very high contrast and black and white, and she liked watching the little dot move around on the map, right? But now I can't play it without thinking about her like swatting at the little dot, and it makes me so sad. So I have an association with this particular title, but yeah, because she just liked watching the little dot move. What can you do? It's a sad story, but on the other hand, like I feel like having melancholy feelings about this game is normal because it's such a melancholy game.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So there's a segment in chapter 3 of this game, the musical segment, in the Roadhouse. And anyone who's played it knows what I'm talking about. The characters end up at this like nowhere roadhouse, and some people there perform, and it just is out of nowhere like this mystical experience. That takes me back to my college days when I would just like go to some like dive bar, just some random place that has some random band in it, and I would just go in and listen to them. You know, a time in my life when that was very like freeing and just something I would do on my own, and it was wild.
That particular scene conjures up late night memories in almost anybody that plays it. Like at some point you were at some party that lasted longer than it should, and there was still music playing, and you didn't know what time it was, and that's just the feeling that I get from playing this game. Like
totally. Anyway, so
set in Kentucky.
Some of the it's set in Kentucky specifically. It has a lot of very specific references to like government projects that might have happened in that time frame, corporate entities. Just from a game element point of view, we've listed a few here. That it's folkloric, it's rural instead of urban. Debt is a huge driver of action.
There is like some urban satire kind of buried in it. Like once you get to like the underground areas, and like suddenly there's this there's a little bit of that too, I think. But it's basically set in the country. Yeah.
I agree, and I think that the fact that the main guy is doing this gig work at the start and just falls into just an impossible debt partway through the game, in part because of I won't give anything away, but like there's a healthcare crisis in the game, and it essentially forms the basis for his actions throughout the whole game. This is all very American. every once in a while I'll be playing a game and it's set in America, but it was not made by someone in America, and like the character is injured, and then like they just go to quote unquote the clinic, and
Right.
they like pay a
Yeah.
small amount of money and they're okay again. And I get
That's how
health,
it
get like
works in
health,
civilized countries.
health and health, health in video games. Like, okay, sure, you're not gonna make it
Yeah, sure.
realistic, but it's not like that feeling when you get hurt or you get sick here and you don't have, Cadillac insurance, or even if you do, you just start to really feel it.
And they spend a long time going over the challenges that he faces. They don't they linger on it. It's part of the story.
Yeah, yeah, it
Yeah,
really
it's
is.
very
Yeah.
different for sure.
So I think that they're really pointing to something specifically about living in America and Kentucky specifically even.
And this is another game I haven't played, so hit me with this one.
Oh, okay. So The Flame and the Flood is a kind of roguelike post-apocalyptic river exploration. So the idea is right there in the name. There's been a massive flood of an unnamed river, and you are traveling down it on a raft. And you encounter different NPCs that want something from you, or are trying to get something further down the river. You can never go back up the river. The river is always headed downstream. Sometimes you have to get out of the raft in order to find a way around or to move an obstruction. There are wild animals and hostile people. But it has a wonderful regional soundtrack of Mississippi blues style soundtrack, I would say. It's certainly inspired by the 1927 Mississippi flood, which was a huge change for the way the country handled its rivers. And 500 died. It 27,000 square miles underwater.
Wow.
Just like huge change. And I it's The Flame and the Flood is unusual. Kentucky Route Zero is an adventure game where you're just kind of like walking around doing stuff.
Right.
Flame and the Flood has like you're navigating with your raft and trying to avoid obstacles. You're fighting with hungry wolves.
I suddenly wondered, did we even add a slide for the Oregon Trail? We should have. We didn't, I don't think.
Oh my god, we should have. The Oregon Trail.
Because it's the same vibe, right? Like you at the very end when you gotta like brave the rapids to get to the end of the trail.
Yes, you're braving the rapids, right?
God. Right. Is it like that? Is this game like that? You gotta like sail down the. Like a more fleshed out version of that mini game, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess certainly navigating the river feels that way sometimes, where it's like you're coming towards a big whirlpool and there's rocks all around it, and you're trying to steer your way through. I didn't
even think of Oregon Trail till just now, but like now we're thinking about rapids, and I'm like, oh yeah, Oregon Trail. That's like one that's like very historically based, but also like an ancient ass video game. Although it does use like real world locations in that game as well.
Yeah, and it's based on like real trips that settlers took. So interesting. Yes. Well, we'll put that in version 2 of this. Yeah,
we do another presentation. We'll talk about it more.
When we're invited to do this at the Smithsonian.
Yeah, we'll
exactly.
We'll do it. We'll take it to GDC. I'll pitch it.
There we
go.
To GDC. There we go. We'll do to.
Yeah, we could do that. Right. Yeah, we'll revise.
We'll have a PNG of Marshall McLuhan and a vampire. Yeah, at GDC. That'll work.
That I was actually, believe it or not, I helped with a GDC talk this last year.
Nice.
So maybe I already was a vampire playing at GDC last year. I don't know. that was the 1001 Nights folks. They were wonderful.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So maybe I've already did it there. I don't know. We'll find out someday. So this section is about Americana versus authentic American. So what does it mean for something to be Americana?
Yeah, so this was sort of something we started talking about, and the game we talk about it first and foremost was the Devil May Cry series.
Right.
A lot of foreign games, especially Japanese games, look at America and they see sort of these 1950s style diners, neon lights, rock and roll, hamburgers, cars, all things that exist in America to be sure.
Cowboy
but
hats.
they sort of Yeah, cowboy hats. They kind of add up to a particular picture of
Mm-hmm.
America.
Mm-hmm.
And they, you know, to some degree, it's like they're looking for things that they can't necessarily find in their own country.
Mm-hmm.
Like these are not. It's not that there's no diners anywhere, but like the fact is that like a neon light, like traditional American 1950s
Mm-hmm.
diner has a very particular vibe to it.
Right.
Um, and not all of these elements, have to be there for something to be Americana. But if you think of like the paintings of Norman Rockwell,
Mm-hmm.
or things like that kind of stand out as traditionally American.
Burger for
Burger.
sure, and like specific cars, like lowrider muscle cars.
Yeah,
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 American cars, big American cars.
right. Big
Um,
trucks. Yeah, that's the vibe
I
for sure.
definitely think guns are certainly an element
Guns
of
for
that.
sure. Yeah, I mean,
Uh, uh,
I am not one to hold back on my Devil May Cry opinions. We'll get to that
no,
slide.
that's
We'll
right.
get to that slide eventually. So like yeah, 1950s is huge, right? Like that's the big like touch point for a lot of people. Like, oh, America, 1950s diner burger.
This Yeah, and it's a very like advertising inflected 1950s where we're trying to sell something to white suburban, 1950s households. So we kind of create this picture of America and say, "Don't you want this?" And like, "Oh my God, of course we want this." And now, people can look at that advertising, look at those fictional depictions, and say, "Okay, that must be what America is, or at least
Right.
was," and it's not really. The next slide is like the 1950s were full of like social pressures and social changes and major upheavals that would come about to their full fruition in the 60s. But
Hmm.
for every like hippie movement, you had the sort of hipster movement, the Beats in the 1950s. You had changes in art, in dance, in music, in race relations, in relations between the classes, in unions. Like all of these things were happening in the 1950s. So even like the Americana view of the 1950s is
Hmm.
not actually authentic to how America was in the 1950s.
And whenever we
Not even
talk
close.
about the past, we talk about the sanitized version of the past that has been fed to us through whatever media we have consumed. So,
Exactly.
in a couple decades from now, the COVID lockdown era was not portrayed very much on film or television.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
particular year will be a footnote historically because it was simply not portrayed for the most part. You see it slightly, like for example, Glass Onion does a little bit with it, where they have the masks
Oh
and they have the
yeah.
spray. Yeah, right. But there's so little art depicting that because it wasn't interesting to depict. I don't think so. We'll look back and not remember that happened.
Yeah, yeah, or who knows? Maybe there'll be like a movie that comes out in a couple of years that'll be about like,
Right.
the quintessential COVID lockdown movie in America,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and that really captured those feelings or that time, and then that becomes what we'll refer to and what future generations will think it was like,
Right.
not necessarily what it was authentically like. Doc Beard says in the comments,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of 50s nostalgia forgets that it was arguably the height of labor's power in America. That's an excellent point.
Right. Right.
There were certainly major shifts in the workplace in America in the 50s.
Mm-hmm.
The returning, veterans from Europe and the Pacific, were taking jobs that had been, done by women for 3 or 4 years. There had been an expansion in, what would have been white segregated jobs had been done by Black Americans or by Mexican Americans. So those shifts in labor demographics also were a huge part of what was going on. So yeah, it's the 50s, as much as any other time in history, was a real time. It was not.
Right.
It's not just like an advertising picture in a magazine or a painting
Yeah, it's
or
not
a
just
TV show.
Fred Flintstone selling you cigarettes or whatever the hell was going on. So let's get into that. I'm not going to talk about the show because I'm saving that for another rant. But the show
Got it.
sets DMC.
I haven't seen it, so
and, well, good. Don't watch it. It sucks. No.
okay, I won't.
if you do watch it, let me know what you think. But it's only 4
Okay.
hours. It's only 4 hours, 8 episodes, and I did not like it. Culture war bullshit aside.
Got it.
But I like DMC a lot. Like maybe an unhealthy amount. Like maybe it's not good to like it as much as I like it. And it's gone through some phases, some changes, but
To say the least.
primarily is it did not start out particularly Americana focused. The first game is set in this weird mansion on this weird island because it was a reskinned Resident Evil game, which everybody loves to talk about.
Oh, I didn't know that.
You didn't know that? Oh my god! I'm telling you this.
I'm telling
you this for the first time. It was originally Resident Evil.
I'm a DMC noob. I played a couple of the games, but like I know very little about them. But so please educate me.
I feel like anytime a VTuber starts streaming DMC, somebody has to come in their chat and be like, "Did you know that this was originally Resident Evil 4, and then they changed it?" So the first DMC game was originally a prototype for RE4, and then RE4 became a completely different game. So they changed Leon to be this other guy. It's you. You're the one that does that. Shut up! I am not. I'm not that person. Did you know that Mario 2 was originally Doki Doki Panic?
Wow.
Oh my god. Did you know that Donkey Kong was originally a Popeye game?
No, I did not know that.
I told you 2 new things today.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, but DMC was originally a Resident Evil game. So the first DMC game is not particularly soaked in this kind of aesthetic. It's more DMC was supposed to be World of Warcraft. There we go. That's correct. That's right. Yeah, I know all the stupid facts. So they changed it because it was a big game set in a haunted mansion, and that's why it doesn't have he's got guns and stuff, but it's very much like a haunted mansion game.
Yeah, you're not anywhere. You're in a haunted house. Yeah.
Right, it's a haunted house game. And then the second game is set like more in a city. And the second game not being everybody's favorite, but it is set like more in an urban environment. And then they started to push the game toward that hybrid of like urban environments mixed with hell, which is kind of where you get that like the fourth game is very much set like in a sort of a European kind of city. And if we're looking strictly at 5, it's set in American City ?
Yeah.
Like it's like Chicago through a lens of it has London phone booths in it and like old school phones that don't look like they belong to the design, and then you see this like neon on the side of a van situation, and it's like a very mishmashed concept of America.
Got it.
You know, like it's
yeah.
It's very like cut and paste, like all these different things that kind of sort of could be American, but also like there's a weird lens that it's all through at the same time.
Sort of like the Gotham City / World of Darkness. Yes. Like everything's very gothic, gargoyles and monsters and stuff like that.
By the way, you're gonna hate this. Gotham City, Pittsburgh.
Oh no, I don't hate that at all. Listen. Listen. I'm a Gotham City guy from way back. I know all about the different artists and the different cities they've used.
In specifically, I want to say the Dark Knight, where they have the football team. That's the Pittsburgh Stadium, and then all those gothic ass buildings. Those are real. It's a gothic ass city.
I love it.
It's one of my favorite weird cities. I don't know. I've lived there a little bit, and it's a crazy ass place. I do not know. I could not nail down. The new cartoon decides to set DMC in New York, which is good. I kind of like that, except that they kind of make it like a post 9/11 New York, and they make it very political in a way that's very different from the series. Because the series normally doesn't really touch on like current events per se, but they kind of ground it very specifically in a place and time, which I don't hate that. I don't hate that aspect of it. The DMC 5 is set in a fictional Redgrave City, which they just love that name. They use it a lot. Which kind of feels like a Midwestern city. It doesn't really feel like New York. It kind of feels like a Chicago. But it also has like a lot of European affectations. It's got like weird London phone booths and like some gothic buildings that maybe don't otherwise belong. In the skyline. So it's a little bit of a mixy matchy. But it certainly speaks to like the Americana concept. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
agree. I'd like to see like what exactly Redgrave City is, or like what it's intending to be, because I just kind of mapped like, oh, it's just sort of a weird Midwestern city that they kind of decided with some European affectations in it for no clear reason, but just because it looks cool, I
Yeah,
guess. Like they just said whatever looked cool, I think, which is kind of the point, right? It doesn't have to make sense as long as it's stylish, you know?
yeah. I do think it's interesting because a lot of when an American horror movie wants to
Mm-hmm.
make a building seem scary, they make
Mm-hmm.
it look more European
Right.
in order to make it seem scary, right?
Absolutely.
Vampires are they put like a gargoyle on it, like
Mm-hmm.
it's Notre Dame, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's something about like the oldness of Europe is frightening to an American audience to see something that's older
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
than they normally interact with.
Yeah. And I think you made this slide. I like what you have like cigarettes and two guns. Now Dante, of course, famously does not smoke, and Nero does not
Right.
either.
Yes.
Right, but
Yes.
Nero's sidekick Nico is
Yes.
chain smoking constantly out of the corner of the
Yes.
van. Yes.
Nico is who I was thinking about for that.
Mm-hmm.
And in particular, like that's another blue collar. Like she's like a mechanic
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
as far as I remember. So
Yeah.
again, like when we've got our heroes who are kind of the sword wielding weirdos, but when they come across like people, they're often like in this blue collar vibe.
Right. Very much so. Are you ready? Are you ready? Nicoletta Goldstein. That's her full name.
Oh, fantastic! That's
Yeah. So
awesome.
yeah, she's also like
The,
some Jewish heritage in there.
absolutely,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely,
Mm-hmm.
Italian Jewish,
Yeah, it's
fantastic.
crazy. It's a crazy
That's a,
character. Yeah.
that's a great character concept there. I
And she's
love
awesome. She's awesome. I actually know all of the lore associated with that, but she's the granddaughter. She's the granddaughter of Dante's original gunsmith, who is
Interesting.
Nell
Okay.
Goldstein. Yes, correct.
All right.
So Nell was supposedly part of the lore, though she's never been on screen. But she's in like the lore blurbs and stuff. So that's her, because she comes up to Dante at one point and says, "I'm the guns that my grandma made those." She says that. She stutters a little bit because she's very nervous, and she's also
Yeah,
Southern, which is so fucking cute.
that is very cute. That is very cute.
She's just a great character in addition to the series, and like her whole like blue collar gunsmith kind of
Very
attitude
practical.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Well, you need someone to offset the kind of like broody energy of the leads, right? You need
right.
someone who's very down to earth. You need someone who's very specifically. I think that again, like the blue collar thing is a
Mm-hmm.
good way to describe it here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we're about to hit an ad break, so those of you that are subbed are going to continue to see the presentation. But just so you know, you might already be in ads, so sorry about that. And we do run a 3-minute ad break every now and then to maybe I won't move to the next slide until you've killed 3 minutes, but that's okay because I can talk about DMC for maybe like 5
Yeah,
hours.
tell me.
I met
So
a cosplayer for Nico when they announced the game. They had like an official Capcom cosplayer, and she had like all of the tattoos like fake tattooed on, and it was just like amazing. I would love to go to
damn,
this. Yeah, she was awesome.
that's real commitment.
What were you about to say?
Well, I was about to say, if we're going to just spend 3 minutes like speculating and kind of going down a rabbit hole here, that one element of this character, then,
Mm-hmm.
if as you describe it, is
Mm-hmm.
this is someone who, to Doc Beard's point,
Mm-hmm.
who has a labor, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're a craftsman,
Right.
and it's a family craft that's been
Mm-hmm.
passed down through
Yes.
generations,
Mm-hmm.
and so her relation to her work would be seen as like she's not a manager, she's not a CEO, right? She's not a computer programmer. She creates and handles sort of down to earth things,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a key element of her effect on the game, not just her personality compared to our broody heroes, but also our but just also her effect on the game is related to labor.
And one of the things that's specific about Nell is that Nell did not have formal education. That's part of her backstory as well. Like
Interesting.
she wasn't good at writing or spelling. Like that's in the lore. That's in the lore. Yeah, because like the stuff on they worked it into the lore because when they originally put Dante's guns together, there's a misspelling on the engraving, and it says like artworks, but it says artworks with an A or something like that. And then they decided to go ahead and be like, oh, yeah, well, she didn't know how to spell. So
Yeah.
they actually, like, worked that into the story.
No, that's cool. That's really cool. I like that a lot. Again, lack of formal education. Like, there's a particular class marker in formal education in America, and that marks her as a specific class, and I think that's very interesting.
Yes, it marks her as somebody who did not go to college, did not have like much formal education in anything, was literally just a tradesperson. And made this and was very, very good at gunsmithing, and that was like her whole deal.
That's great.
Yeah, DMC Fortress on the member of the blue collar class who won the big city. Yeah.
Doc Beard writes about this character who gets caught up in a cult and was given money and equipment he needs to do every awful thing he's ever dreamed of. Again, that's very interesting.
That's Nico's dad.
Interesting.
Angus,
That's cool.
Yeah, so he's the bad guy, one of the bad guys in 4. So the lineage goes, okay, it's a little more complicated. It's a little more complicated because Nico's stepdad is actually Nell's son. So she was raised by a different dad than her birth dad, but like, yeah, they're all like tangled up together.
Interesting.
It's very complicated.
Well, maybe I have to give these games another shot. Maybe I ought to get good at them.
It's hard. They're hard games. They're hard games.
I know.
But,
I'm not getting any younger. So
I gotta fire up 5 again. I haven't platinumed 5. I need to get the rest of my achievements in that game. I've played it a considerable amount, maybe 100 hours. So I'm a little in deep for the series. So like I said, you can go. Let's talk about 1950s. We're out of ads. Let's talk about 1950s Fallout.
Yay! Very good. Very good. So yeah, this first it was at Interplay, and now it's at Bethesda. It was isometric, turn-based, and then first-person shooter. But I think what we wanted to talk about was Fallout's view of. I'm not sure I'd even call it 100% satirical. Their view of like the civilization of America before the apocalypse.
Right. And it's a very AU kind of, America was trapped in the 1950s and then the bombs hit kind of worldview. So it does explicitly has that. When you think about 1950s Americana in a video game, this is the game you're thinking about. This is the series you're thinking about, and how far they carried it, especially in the 3D, even past the Interplay era, really like into the Bethesda era with it. It really has that aesthetic.
Yeah, so you have like all the broken down cars on the freeway all have fins. Like even though they're like powered by little miniature nuclear power plants, that's actually kind of like the dream of 1950s science fiction, is that everyone's going to have a little nuclear power plant in their house to power it.
The little nukes, the tiny little nukes. It's been a long time since I played the isometric RPGs. I don't think they lean into the aesthetic quite as hard, but they still have Fallout Boy because he's like their mascot.
It's very. I do think that it's good in that even in the more, I guess, surface level Fallout games, it's pretty obvious that the world before the apocalypse had just gone crazy.
Right.
Like it's just it's insane. Right. And so they have this kind of fake happiness on the surface, which would correspond to those like 1950s ads and Norman Rockwell paintings that I talked about. But like underneath, they were just, we need to invade Canada for oil, like something like that.
Crazy shit was going on. And just the idea of the vaults in general is a very corrupt system that would allow the vaults to exist and for people to be shoved in for generations.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say, of the various Fallout games, in terms of what the world building is, the one that is weirdly the one I like the most and find them be the most in-depth is Fallout 76.
Oh, well, we have a lot of fans of 76 that hang out in the chat. I haven't played it much, but I do think that it's very authentic in the sense that they made it in the area in which they are located.
True. And I would also say that as a themed area, they try to really make it clear that this is a civilization that's falling apart, and the people, the workers and the bosses are at each other's throats, right up until the bombs fall, and then even after. And those themes are sort of throughout Fallout 76. You find, of course, the mines are so important to that region. You find, conflicts over, well, in the Fallout world, there's robots. Can we just have robots do the mining?
Right.
And of course, then the workers rise up. They seize locations. They send in other robots to gun them down. Like all of these things can be found out just through kind of walking through the world in a way that's like very cohesive. Whereas Fallout 4, Fallout 3, New Vegas, they don't have a cohesive picture necessarily of what the pre-fall world was.
Right. Yeah, they don't show as much about it. Surprisingly early
Yeah.
example of anti-capitalist messaging. I mean, yeah, I don't think in the 90s there was a lot of games that were so as overtly political as Fallout. I'm not going to say there wasn't any, because there certainly was, especially on PC. On PC, there certainly was. But I think the message of Fallout, it has resonated pretty well for a long time because it kind of is timeless in a weird way, even though it's set in a specific place and time.
Yeah, like the original Fallout, sort of the arc of the character is the same arc that a lot of Westerns depict, where the character is asked to do something and must deploy violence in order to do it, but deploying that violence makes them sort of repulsive to the people they're trying to protect, and they have to keep writing on. I actually just rewatched Shane, one of my favorite Westerns of all time.
Yeah, classic.
And it's an incredible movie. Alan Ladd is just amazing in it. Shane shows up. He's a gunslinger, but he's portrayed in this very gentle way, like almost feminine coded in a way. He doesn't raise his voice. He's very quiet. He wears a pink shirt with frills on it, and in beautiful Technicolor. And he shows up and he protects this farm from, these predatory gangs, and gets involved in a situation where he has to use his extremely dominant combat skills in order to protect people. But like at the end, he's just like, I can't stay here. Like I can't be part of this world doing what I do.
I feel like we could go down a whole other rabbit hole about like media's construction of masculinity and how narrow and narrow and narrow that's become. Like if you look at the combination of like a Western character wearing fringe and like Dante Devil May Cry wearing fringe, it's the same shit.
Oh,
right?
totally, yeah. That's a great point. That's a great point.
It's the same shit. Like it's still cowboy shit, right? Like it's all the same.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and cowboy is like the most constructed masculine like concept that you can have in America, right? Like,
yeah,
For
absolutely.
sure. And then have you watched the Fallout show?
I did. Yeah, I did.
So that's a great, Walton Goggins in that show.
Ghoul.
He's a fucking cowboy.
he's a cowboy. Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And
I think
incredible.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. And the cowboy, of course, is constructed from the first half of the 20th century, looking back at the last half of the 19th, and the cowboy has their peak in the 1950s, which is what we're talking about here. So
yeah, then pop culture and then films, especially.
Exactly.
Yeah, then that's why
Exactly.
that concept of the 1950s translates so well to Fallout, where you have this cowboy that's still doing cowboy shit, but he was a TV cowboy, so now he's like, I'm gonna be a cowboy for real. And there's a lot of depth. There's a lot of depth to that that's just so fun to dig into.
Totally.
On a TV
Stone
show.
Lion says, I wonder if that, talking of Shane here, was at all inspired by Marty Robbins' Mr. Shorty. So Shane is actually based on a novel. I think the Robbins song is contemporaneous with it, but not, I think the novel was earlier. I do highly, highly recommend it. It really is a very affecting movie.
Can we touch on your point 3
out.
here, contradictory world building? Because what are you getting out that?
Oh, just that that the until Fallout 76, there's not a clear picture of what life before the fall was like.
Oh, sure.
Like what is the news of the day in Fallout 4 before the bombs fall? It's not really clear. There's like a bit of corruption or crime or something that's happening before the fall. You find that out through various side quests and so on, but there's not like an overall picture of here's what life was like for the average person living here before the bombs. And in Fallout 76 there was. So I think that's kind of what I was getting at with number 3.
I think Fallout Fallout 3 also does some interesting stuff with real world landmarks, particularly like you can see the Washington Monument in the distance, which is like an interesting real world landmark to choose, and like the various presidential.
Oh yeah.
Like I think that that's a cool the way that they laid that out with the real world monuments and stuff. I think that's fun to do. Like if you go to DC after doing Fallout and you're like, oh man, this subway station is even here. Like it's a weird experience after if you just played it.
Yeah, totally.
It was
And actually, go ahead.
It was actually in the Smithsonian, right? Because they had a video game exhibition at the Smithsonian, and they had side by sides there.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
That is cool.
Yeah, so showing like Fallout's vision of DC versus the city you're actually in. So
that's really neat.
Yeah.
No, I have later on in the presentation, there's another game that goes to DC that I have a very similar attitude about, The Division 2. So that's later on in our grab bag, but yeah, absolutely.
I have not played Horizon, and it's not really on my list, but I'm curious to know what your take on it is.
So Horizon Zero Dawn, the thing that I found interesting about it is I don't know anything about the region that it's in, but it's specifically in terms of how I just criticized a lot of the Fallout games for having that sort of contradictory world building. So how it was before the apocalypse. Horizon Zero Dawn makes it very, very clear that the world that it is after the America that preceded the apocalypse is one that is totally dominated by essentially Silicon Valley tech guys who can do whatever they want.
Oh, okay, I see. So this is very much an apocalypse by way of California in this case.
Very much so. It might even be set in California. I'm not 100% sure exactly where, but all the monsters are robots of various sizes, and the smaller or less dangerous ones are like ones that are kind of recognizable as for what they might have been. The larger ones are just like, I'm a giant robot dinosaur. Like I've assembled myself from some factory somewhere. But yeah, when you start finding evidence of what happened before the apocalypse, it just becomes really clear what kind of civilization it was. So I put it in here that you get it because you get what people are like in the news when they're from Silicon Valley, saying, "Hey, I've got a new app for your phone that's going to cost you $8 a month," right? Like that's the kind of attitude that the game is, expecting you to know about and extend.
I didn't put Battle Network on here, but whenever I think of like the Internet of Things, I think of a Mega Man Battle Network because it's the stupidest possible vision for the internet, and I don't know why we did it. I don't know why we decided that was the thing we were going to base our stupid shit on, but we did. I don't know. Though that is not really relevant to the America discussion. It's just more relevant to like the futuristic discussion. Yeah, for sure.
It has a vision of what the future would be, and it hit close.
One of my favorite games of all time.
Oh my gosh, mine too.
God, Swery is coming to Philly. I get to talk to him again.
Oh, awesome.
I'm so excited. I've seen him in person.
You want to talk about it
3 times? Maybe? I don't know.
You want to talk about an auteur? He's fantastic in terms of just being so stylistic, and you always are excited to see what he's going to do next.
So, Deadly Premonition, if you're not familiar with it, based very loosely, actually very tightly in some cases, on the works of David Lynch, particularly Twin Peaks. David Lynch himself, an auteur, rest in peace. We have talked about him quite a bit on the stream because I'm a huge fan of David Lynch's work. And this is very much an homage, inspiration, set, kind of vaguely in the Pacific Northwest in a logging town.
Yeah, and what I wanted to bring up with respect to Deadly Premonition is in the slide, the next slide. When we say that a video game is Lynchian, are we saying that it's because Lynch is responding to that same kind of weird version of Americana in a lot of ways? Like if you watch Blue Velvet, the surface level of Blue Velvet's town is just like, oh, it's just this lovely little small town and people work at the lumber mill and at the hardware store, and the love interest is like straight out of a 1950s yearbook. They have a shake at the diner, and then like underneath it is just this unbelievable horror.
Right.
And So Lynch is responding to these ideas of Americana and responding to these media, film, television concepts. So when we talk about is Deadly Premonition, and this is a question to you, I want your opinion on it. Is it a copy of a copy, or is it stand on its own, do you think?
I do feel like it takes so much inspiration from Blue Velvet and Twin Peaks in particular that it does have that kind of copy of a copy that didn't come out as clear kind of feeling. Look at you can see coffee on the road in this picture. I just noticed that. He's standing over the coffee. Do you see it? FK in the coffee. A coffee warned me about it. And if you watch Twin Peaks and then play this game back to back, you're gonna be like, "Oh, it's the same exact shit," right? Like it's like
the same thing, yeah.
Like in Twin Peaks, there's the log lady. In Deadly Premonition, there's a lady with a pot that talks to her casserole. It's the same shit. Like it's like really similar. But I'm very, very charmed by that and almost how direct of a knockoff it is in many ways. And then also there's an identity thing in here that Deadly Premonition was playing with that is not present in Twin Peaks, because Twin Peaks doesn't have like a very satisfying ending, really. They kind of took the idea of Twin Peaks, like the entity that possesses people, and actually made it work. Which is different, right? So the whole like the traveling tree salesman, that's like a uniquely sweary affectation. That's his guy. So there's a little bit of uniqueness to it, but it does very much feel like a copy of a copy, but not in a bad way. In a surreal dreamlike way. Like
interesting.
Like I saw this show and I wanted to do that, and I don't exactly know. I mean, it's not that Swery hasn't been to America. He obviously has. But like maybe the actual setting is very fuzzy in this game.
Yeah.
It feels like a TV view of a movie view of a diner that you would never actually go to. You know?
Yeah.
Like in this
game, I think about that.
Go ahead.
I think about that a lot when I was playing it. I was like, because of course it also has famously so many like weird bugs and janky like problems with it. And like I'm struggling past a bug and I'm thinking to myself, can I like, what is this being a video game adding to my experience? You know what I mean? Of like this Lynchian experience. Couldn't I just like turn this off and watch Blue Velvet? Like, what does the interactivity part of it provide? And I do think it's such a unique artifact, independent of its value as a game. The fact that all the NPCs in the game like have their own schedules, go about their own day. It's so detailed, and it's so like just like a weirdly clockwork item. Irrespective of its value as a game, that it has this sort of artistic merit. It's not even quite a simulation, because as you point out, it's so bizarre. But like it truly has like a feeling of immersion that is kind of unparalleled.
Yes. What I was about to say before you kind of went ahead and said it, is that what you get out of it being an interactive experience, I think, is that it has this kind of living simulation vibe. That you can actually explore the space. And I mean, a lot of the town in Deadly Premonition is very empty, except for the programmed NPCs that have specific schedules they stick to. So there's not like a lot of like random people walking around.
Or the 40-foot dog that attacks you if you walk out of the hotel at night.
Yeah, don't walk out of a hotel in the rain, you'll get attacked by the scary dog. But I think your imagination is supposed to fill in the idea of other people living here. And that just wasn't in the scope of what was created. So what was created was like at some 20 odd PCs, NPCs. There's like one for each letter of the alphabet, but then like York counts as one. So like counts as two actually, because he's Zach and York at the same time. So like if you count, it's every letter of the alphabet. So like if that simulation is occurring like around you, and like you're experiencing that, and because of that, and because you have to drive a lot. And because like certain events only happen at certain times, you start to learn this weird little quirky town in a very intimate way if you're playing the game correctly. Like if you're just trying to gun through it, you're going to miss what's interesting about the game, which is like all the weird side questing shit that's in the game.
Yeah, because I imagine like there could be a version of it where it's just the main story, or maybe the main story and a few little side quests,
Mm-hmm.
and like instead of driving all around in the very janky car and
Mm-hmm.
seeing other people drive past, that like you just push a button and you fast travel there.
Mm-hmm.
Like
You can
I need to go to
you can fast travel in Deadly Premonition,
uh,
but you have to earn it in
um
a side quest from George.
oh, that's right, that's right.
Yeah,
Um
but driving around is part of the experience because then you get to hear
Totally.
York talk about movies the whole time.
Exactly, and like I imagine like a version where you just do the story missions, right?
Right,
And
right.
I'm like, okay, that would be really repetitive. That would not be very fun. I wouldn't enjoy that at all.
Yeah.
And then that kind of leads you down the path of, well, what, who is that just drove past? Like, can I
Mm-hmm.
figure out who it is? And
Right.
oftentimes you can.
Yeah. And I think people that tackled this game in a traditional, I got a gun through it to see the ending so that I can write a review kind of way, did not
Yeah,
have the good experience with this game because they
yeah.
saw it as a traditional game title. I think to have the good experience, you've got to dig into it a little bit deeper and kind of sink your teeth into it. And not everybody was up for that, especially given how buggy it is and how prone to crashing and how bad the combat is and how stilted and weird the dialogue can be at times. I mean, there's just a lot to fight to get to the good experience, and I can understand why people don't want to fight that fight. But I feel like if you do, it opens up like a beautiful butterfly.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Well, I guess this is getting, from a setting perspective, we're getting a little further away. Alan Wake, also another very Lynchian title.
Alan Wake cracks me up. The first Alan Wake and Deadly Premonition, I played them back to back, dude. And like they're both like based on the same like Twin Peaks ass shit.
yeah, yeah.
I feel like DP knocks Alan Wake out of the water in that department. That's always been my feeling. It's just so much weirder and jankier and broken. And Alan Wake is very polished and very Remedy. I don't know.
Yeah, it's extremely polished. I do think that Alan Wake has like the leg up in terms of authenticity.
Yes, for sure.
Simply because like they have like the idea of this is a Pacific Northwest small town. It's highly detailed. There are many locations in it that like you will see if you drive through a small town.
Right.
You'll see the big hotel that was built out here, for vacationers, and you'll see like a bunch of messy little offices in the back rooms of every business on Main Street. The local rock and roll band plays a big part in Alan Wake.
Yes, for sure. Oh my god. Did you play the second one as well?
I have not played the second one yet. I actually just upgraded my computer, so I'm hoping that I'll probably pick it up on my next sale.
I was having very big issues with it at first, so yeah, your graphics card needs to be. I was having some struggle with my graphics card on Alan Wake 2, so yeah, definitely get that beefy because that's like if you go back to my VODs on my YouTube, I crashed the game so many times until I fixed my shit.
No.
Yeah, it's a meaty game, but I enjoyed it a lot. More Stephen King than Lynch. No, I agree. Alan Wake definitely has like a lot of Stephen King. But Stephen King is more Maine. Stephen King, Maine is where he sets all of his shit because that's where he's from. And Alan Wake is definitely Pacific Northwest and not so much Maine. The reason I put New York City on here is because Alan Wake 2 has an extended New York City sequence as well.
That's cool.
Which only takes place in like a couple blocks of New York City. But what's interesting in Alan Wake 2 is, first of all, Remedy. They are a Finnish company. They are not from America. Okay?
Yeah.
So we're looking at Deadly Premonition. We're looking at a Lynchian Northwest filtered through the lens of a Japanese developer. Okay. We're looking at Alan Wake. We're looking at a Stephen King / Twin Peaks Northwest filtered through the lens of a Finnish developer. And in the second game, they really, really leaned into the fact that they're not actually American. And they had whole segment of guys who are from Finland being extra fucking Finnish, and they're giving it.
I'll definitely check it out.
And yeah, go ahead.
I was about to say one thing I did like about Alan Wake, the first game, is Barry, his sidekick.
Yeah.
His agent, who is he's a Joe Pesci character basically. Like,
yes, for sure. Oh my god, yes.
He's got the the flat New York accent. He's got the the Italian accent, and it's so strong as a contrast to Wake.
Mhm.
It does truly do feel like it could be like you hear that accent and you're in an area where you don't hear it,
Right.
and like it just like
Well, it's
is
like,
a
boom, this guy's from out of town. This
Absolutely.
guy's a big city guy in the small town. Boom, right there.
He doesn't get it. He doesn't get it. Yeah.
Drops it right away. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
he spends the whole game not getting it, yet you still love him because he's so charming and fun.
He's in over his head, like any good horror
Totally.
character. And of course, Alan Wake 2 has a different deuteragonist. Do we want to open that Pandora's box?
I haven't played it, so I can't answer you on that. You go for it if you want.
Secondary character of Alan Wake 2 is a black lady who's from the town, but she comes back to the town. So they wanted
interesting.
To,
so another Stephen.
That, yeah,
that's another Stephen King vibe. Is that is the character that comes back to the town after making it in the big city, right?
Yes, exactly. That's her whole deal. It's a very Stephen King kind of approach. So like that kind of for some reason I'm it take me a second because I'm blanking on her name, because like it was like Saga, that's what her name is, because she has like a very Finnish name.
Yeah.
Saga Anderson.
That's a super Finnish name.
Yeah.
What the heck?
Yeah, she's like a Viking ass. She's like a Viking
Saga?
ass name. Yeah, Saga.
Heck?
Yeah. So she's the town has a very like a high concentration of like that kind of population, of like Scandinavian population in the town. And so this woman showing up and being like half African American, she doesn't quite fit in. There's like this sort of like I don't know where I belong kind of vibe to it. So it's very cool. I really like what they did with it. The reason I say do we want to open that can of worms is because SBI consulted on that game, which very famously. Yeah.
Okay.
So they did some of the consultation, which I think that's the reason you hire a consultation company, to sort of be like, because you want to get something authentic that you don't necessarily know how to portray necessarily,
Yeah, they're from Finland.
Right. They're not Americans. They wanted to know like if there was anything they needed to do to like add to that experience. We're like Alan Woke, exactly.
More like Alan. Oh my God.
But there was like
solved it.
There was a little controversy because in Control, which was their previous game, they teased at Saga, and at the time they cast a white actress as that character, and then they recast that character.
I don't remember that tease. I've played Control, but not the DLCs. If it was in one of those, so
how do you feel about Control from an American authenticity perspective? Because I did not finish. I didn't finish Control.
I from an authenticity perspective, again, it's all in one building, so it's not you're not really portraying it. Although I do have to say that like there's a vision of American strength, which is in these giant mid-century corporations, federal agencies, like military entities that are like, you imagine like a big granite building. Just to give an example, when the Los Angeles Police Department was depicted in Dragnet, a show that they were very deeply involved in the production of in the 1960s, to show the Los Angeles Police Department's headquarters, they showed a picture not of the actual headquarters, but of City Hall. The biggest civic building there was, in order to project this like sense that the LAPD was powerful, strong, had these, big,
That's so interesting. That's so interesting.
Yeah, so it's like this. So the architecture, the scale, the sort of like insane, I guess the insane scale of it, says something authentic to me about the fantasy of American strength.
Yeah,
what it should look like.
Dovetails directly into Alan Wake 2 because they have the FBC come back in Alan Wake 2, and they showed like this. So there's a little bit of a crossover like between those storylines and the Bureau of Control. Like the idea of this shady government agency that knows all the secrets is a very American kind of concept, but it's such a fantasy. Like, it's such an actual fantasy. It's not really how it is, but Control owes a lot more to like the SCP wiki as
Agreed.
as a source of inspiration. But
Which is a high, yeah, and the SCP Wiki, to its credit, is an extremely international project.
Right.
You can read something on the SCP Wiki that speaks to a folklore that you've never heard of before. And I think that's one of the great things about it.
Yeah, because it becomes this sort of melting pot of different conspiracy / story / horrors tropes. They're not predictable in that sense.
And if you want to do something that's regional and authentic, there is a space for that on the SCP Wiki. One of the ones that I was just reading the other day is a collection of them that is kind of based around like the South of Midnight folklore, right? The Southern United States folklore. They have probably, 10 SCPs, 4 or 5 short stories, a couple of character ideas. And it was all themed around that. So I think that's really cool.
I almost feel like this dovetails really nicely into the older World of Darkness conversation we were having, because World of Darkness has so many Chicago by Night / the Bayou by Night kind of. Do they have a New Orleans by Night?
Regional books.
Yeah, their by night books are all very regional, right? And there's that sense of the different regions of folklore create different shifters and vampires and stuff to talk about too.
Yeah.
So
this is a topic that I am
America dovetailing with the America projecting power kind of conversation.
Yeah, this is one of the areas that I am very interested in. It's so hard when I'm talking to younger people today to impress upon them that there used to be a conservative art world in America.
Kids these days don't know.
Kids these days don't know
about Tom Clancy.
And Tom Clancy, a guy who wrote, at least in my opinion, The Hunt for Red October is a genuine masterpiece. And it is a fantastic book. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. And it has a conservative point of view to it, which is our military is absolutely unbeatable if it knows what it's facing. But we don't know what we're facing, and we can't find out. And the whole book is about the anxiety that a conservative person feels when they understand that a cop's flashlight doesn't go forever. Right. And it truly is like a real feeling. He expresses it very well. The characters are well drawn, and they all have kind of different points of view on it. And so he truly is a conservative auteur, in my view. Now, I have a negative opinion about Ubisoft's refusal to embrace politics in their game.
Not the last time Ubisoft is going to show up on these slides. Let's just get it out of the way right now. They are French people from France.
Yes, or Canada. There's an Ubisoft Montreal.
Ubisoft Montreal, yes. Which is also Canadian. It's French-Canadian, but yes.
French-Canadian, yeah. But for example, you still see these weird sort of conservative ideas kind of shoot through the Tom Clancy properties, yet because Ubisoft is really trying to avoid political controversy, they kind of just sit on their hands and look the other way and don't truly flesh them out. So the Division verse is set in a post-apocalyptic NYC and DC. I call it hyper-conservative world building. The Division itself, the titular Division, is a secret agency of the United States that exists only to invade the United States. That's explicitly what it is. It is
dumb.
It is a government secret police that will activate in the event of, I don't know, an apocalypse, and it will invade the United States.
That's it. Yes.
It's crazy. It's like a Rush Limbaugh idea of, when things get bad, those animals that live in New York are going to tear it apart, and only a strong American with a gun can make it right. And that's you in the Division. So it truly is it's an abysmal feeling at times playing this game and just being like, why am I shooting these people? This is the aftermath of a horrendous plague. And the reason why is because Ubisoft can't fully get its mind around the conservative worldview, and what it can and can't be. I will simply say that there is in the division there's a task force of a combination of medical personnel, infrastructure personnel, which I found very interesting, like plumbers and firefighters and like people who keep the water on, because fresh water after an apocalypse is like critical to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then like cops, just like regular old cops.
Right.
And that entity, that sort of task force, is portrayed in a positive way. They're portrayed a little bit out of their depth, like they're trying their best, but they're kind of like your allies a little bit. And I keep looking at them and thinking, why is this game not about one of them?
Right.
Why are they not the hero of this game?
Because
Like,
you need to shoot with a gun. You need to do gun shooting. You got to shoot cans.
Yeah, you've got to be a low friction operator. Like what it is truly crazy to like look to your left and see a protagonist and then go, well, I guess I'm next to him. Speaking anyway,
of other hyper-conservative invasion fantasies, the other Tom Clancy
there you
shooters
go.
in America.
Rainbow Six. Yeah, Rainbow Six Vegas, a post 9/11 terrorist fantasy. So I'm going to say something about all of these together. Division 1, Division 2, Rainbow Six Vegas 1 and 2. They have extremely scrupulous attention to detail on the many different arenas that you have to deal with as a shooter.
That's
so
cool.
like New York City in the Division 1, like the apocalypse happens at Christmas. So imagine like an apocalypse with like Christmas lights everywhere and a big Christmas tree, and like you go into a department store and it's all kitted out for Christmas, got like presents and elves and all the long lines set up, and like it's all falling apart.
Rad, actually, this kind of shooter was never my bread and butter as a gamer. Like I never really got into any of these games, so I like hearing that there's cool things on them that I missed.
It really is like it's designed. They're designed well for like the shooting that you carry out. Division 2 is set in Washington D.C., so much like Fallout 3, you're in the Smithsonian. You're in you're at the steps of the White House. You're at the Washington Monument.
That's awesome.
And so like all of those things are all in the game, and they all feel really good to fight around.
Yeah. New York during Christmas is such a specific time and place.
Yeah.
That has this very specific feel that you've seen in a lot of movies, your Home Alone 2s, all that. So like that, anytime I've gone to New York in real life, I have felt like I had gone to a movie just because movies depict
That's where
New York.
movies are
set so often. Yeah, exactly. It has that.
Yeah, Doc Beard.
Yeah.
Doc Beard says that Clancy, and we'll wrap up on Clancy here, but Clancy's an excellent writer who spent a lot of time being annoyed at adaptations for throwing out the meticulous research. That's absolutely like on point. Like one thing that Clancy is very concerned with, and I think that conservative art of this kind was highly concerned with, was like trying to get the feel of what it is to be a soldier or to be a CIA agent or to be a cop. Those are all like part of the conservative project, and I don't think Ubisoft is interested. Like, I just am not. I don't think that they care.
Let me continue on this line just to ask you like a discussion question for you and maybe for the chat. I feel like they make less games like this now, specifically because they don't really make Tom Clancy games anymore, and that this is one of the things that people are highly nostalgic for in the shooter genre.
I think so. They actually were continuing to try to work on a Division game, and then it was going to be another extraction shooter, which I don't have necessarily a problem with. I think it's an interesting concept, but they just abandoned it. And that was going to be set in a small town, like in kind of a rural area. So think about like PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, like that kind of.
Okay, I see.
There's some little villages, maybe one big city, and then a whole bunch of space. That was what they were working on.
Would you characterize Clancy's politics? Because we're kind of arguing like they were like a Limbaugh type.
Clancy,
yeah.
He's not. He predates Limbaugh for sure. He was a Reaganite for certain. And Reagan and the conservatives of his era had a very specifically anti-communist point of view. And they were highly concerned with the Soviet Union. They were highly concerned with terrorists. they had a negative view of ethnic minorities and civil rights. Like quite famously, there's like a Black Panther / IRA team up in one of Tom Clancy's novels. It's very weird. But I think from a adaptation perspective, what these games like are trying to do is to try to say like stability is really important to a conservative, like the stability of society, and like having a peaceful life is good. And so being able to stop things that cause that to be in chaos is extremely important. Now they have a view of capitalism that says, like the one you've got on the screen right now, right? Like you're literally swinging in to protect the investment of literal billionaires and ripping people off.
Yeah, he's I gotta save this casino.
Exactly.
There's money in there.
There's money at risk here, right? But like from the Clancy perspective, like protecting these systems and protecting these things is what makes it fun to go to Vegas. And it is fun to go to Vegas. He's not wrong.
Like to climb those giant buildings and hang from them and shoot people, like hell yeah, sign me up, right? Like that's just a fun idea for an action story because it's such a fun, bombastic setting to. I mean, it's fun in Fallout to be in Vegas, right? But like a real authentic Vegas that contains like especially the height of some of those buildings and the scale.
Crazy.
Because you don't really appreciate the scale of Vegas until you've been there, because you can see a building on the horizon and it seems quite close. But everything in Vegas is very theme parked, and because there's no atmosphere because of how dry the desert is, your sight line goes for a super long time. So
you see forever.
Yeah, so you don't realize how far you're walking, and then you're like, wow, I have walked 6 miles today, and I didn't even realize it because everything looked so close together.
Okay, I'm going to tell a quick story about that.
Sure,
this is one that Mark Twain used to tell. There's a man that traveled to the Southwest for the first time, and he stops in town, and he looks out and he sees a mountain. He says, "Oh, that mountain looks amazing. I'm going to go check it out." And the guy's like, "You're never going to make it." He's like, "No, I'll just go right over there and I'll check it out." So he leaves. He comes back and he is bedraggled. He is dried out. He is just slowly dragging himself in. He collapses down by the side of the street, and the guy's like, "Oh, how far?" He's like, "I walked all day and that mountain never got any closer, and I'm dying of thirst." And the guy says, "Oh, all you have to do is just go in that saloon over there," and he points across the street. The guy looks across the street at the saloon and goes, "I'll never make it." I'll never make it. I don't have 6 hours to get there. I need water now.
Yeah, you suddenly realize just how big the scale of like the Southwest is, which is a really, really huge place. I think to tie up like the conversation about conservatism, like I don't know that much about Clancy because I've never read his books or played most of these games. So it's I'm kind of a blank slate where it comes to this. But I have noticed among gamers kind of a nostalgia for the days when you could just shoot a terrorist in a game and not have to question that anymore.
Yeah, I from my perspective, it's kind of like waist-high walls. It's like, okay, this is a shooter game, so you got to shoot people. Like you got to figure out someone to shoot.
Right.
And if you really truly think about like Rainbow Six Vegas 2, like it just doesn't make sense. Like not even on a tactical level. The Stone Lion raises the Ghost Recon games, which are set overseas, which is why I didn't raise them. But like you end up killing like 400 people, which is just an insane number to think about.
Sure.
But it's a shooter game.
It's an action story, right? Like part of me is like, yeah, but who cares? Like, who cares how many guys Nathan Drake kills? Like, it doesn't matter. Right. It's just an action story. He kills a bunch of guys.
Exactly.
And like, Indiana Jones has a game recently. You kill Nazis. You don't feel bad about doing that because they're Nazis.
Yeah, fascists and all that. Yeah. So I don't necessarily think that I would chalk up to a conservative point of view. I would look at that. Except insofar as some of these genre, conceits might have some conservative roots to them. But I do think, I think the concept of this era in games, of like the Rainbow Six Vegas, the military shooter, those types of things, it is kind of funny to look back at because they are a little bit ambivalent about like America in general in these
Right.
games in ways that, and again, like Ubisoft is putting that in, and like Tom Clancy never would
They're
would you he
trying not.
could
They're trying to
never
be as apolitical about it as possible. In a way.
exactly,
Yeah.
and it doesn't work. It doesn't work. You kind of need to be like truly believing that you're doing the right thing in order to like really have the correct feeling of excitement to get through a Tom Clancy thing.
I don't even remember how many slides we have, so we're just gonna keep on rolling.
A
We're
million.
gonna
Let's
go
just
into
keep going.
GTA.
Yeah. So
GTA.
obviously, yeah, obviously GTA, we've got, satirical versions of American cities, and then Red Dead Redemption is weirdly a non-satirical Western.
Yeah,
Which I find really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, Far Cry 5 has its own slide. I gotta talk about Far Cry 5.
So it's funny because like I look at Grand Theft Auto 5 and like you can recognize specific California landmarks.
Right.
Like there's a road in my mind that I can remember turning up both in GTA 5 and in real life multiple times.
GTA 5 set in quote unquote San Andreas, which is LA.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, it's kind of, and it's not just LA, like it's kind of California broadly. You can drive up into the desert and, there's all of these different sort of places that you can find. But it's so faithful, like the light and the way that California sunsets look, they're very unique and they worked so hard to make that real. And then you turn to your left and there's like a pun about breasts on a sign and you're like, okay. Like, what's going on?
Felt less and less like a parody with each installment. You know what? I can kind of get by that. Yeah, I think the more authentic they go and the more high fidelity, the less goofs there are in the environment.
It hits so strangely to see that like some bizarre like sexual reference on a billboard after you've been immersed in this, beautiful Los Angeles highway, cruising down it in my convertible, just like I always wanted to do. I'm on the Pacific Coast Highway and I'm loving it. And then like I look over to my left, I'm like, oh, okay, there's a fart joke here. Okay,
right.
great.
Oh, I forgot I was playing GTA as opposed to just regular. Yeah. It does feel a little more incongruous, and I'm curious to know like. In 6, obviously it's going to be a huge deal. How will they continue that energy? It's Miami again. We're back in Vice City, which is Miami. So, and Southern Florida more generally. So how are they going to, where are they going to go with that? They're going to have the beaches, of course, and all that. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. And
I
think I put that in one
until RDR. Oh, yeah, here you got more stuff on here. RDR is not a parody. Yeah.
Yeah. And so this is my question. It's one that I first got from listening to the Insert Credit podcast.
Yeah.
Could Rockstar make a like Sopranos style open world drama like in the modern day?
Right.
Like could they do could they just cut the satire and do a crime drama?
Yeah. They can and they should. No, I agree, and I think like I did not, full disclosure, I have not played GTA 5. I've seen a lot of streams of it. I have played GTA 4. Which also has a lot of aspects of like straightforward crime drama.
Right. The main character in GTA 4.
Yeah.
Exactly. The main character in GTA 4 is a straight man right down the line. Like all the people cracking jokes are around him.
Right. They
kind of undo that a little with Trevor in GTA 5, but like your guy in GTA 4 is a like prestige crime drama protagonist. He would fit right in the Sopranos.
Absolutely, completely. It's a straight on story with a very sincere character and a sincere portrayal of an immigrant in New York. And then around it is this like goofy, wacky stuff that they weren't almost not 100% committed to. I feel.
Yeah. Lita, I love what you said about sincerity. Sincerity is what I want to underline there, that I sometimes feel that they're lacking in these games.
Right.
But in terms of authenticity, like GTA 5 is just like almost uncomparable.
Right.
In how correct it feels to California.
Yeah, and I think they're going to continue with that. I feel like their research is very meticulous in that regard.
Yeah.
They are the ones to spend the most money of any of these developers to make it go. So here's Far Cry 5.
Yeah.
I want to talk about Far Cry 5. I played Far Cry 5. I didn't finish it because Ubisoft games, I always burn out on them eventually. But it's very funny because there's no politics in Far Cry 5. It's not a political game. It's just set in America, and it stars a cult guy who runs an America cult, and there's no other commentary, and it's impossible to do that. It's impossible to do that
Yeah,
and have it not be very political.
Honestly, like it's one of those things you always joke about open world games, like, oh, the main story kind of sucks, but if you do the side stuff, it's great. Like this is that to like the nth degree, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Simply because it is inauthentic, it is insincere, as you put it.
Absolutely.
Like it is not sincerely depicting what a cult in America is. We have cults in this country.
We sure do, and they
have a long history of it.
It's not even a good French fear of America. No, it's not. And the politics is very like, oh, we don't want to say anything, and by not saying anything, they accidentally say things constantly.
Right.
Like I'll never forget one moment in this game when you're supposed to make like a decision between like the good guys and the bad guys, right? And like. It's the pastor hands you like the choice of the cult book or the Bible, right?
Yeah.
And then when you touch the Bible, there's a gun inside the Bible. And like, what is the symbolism here? Is there any symbolism? Did they mean anything by that?
No,
they just
absolutely not. They didn't think about it at all.
You forgot about that? I've never forgotten about that because I was just like, what is this even saying? Like, what?
It's crazy because there is if they had been sincere and had actually said, this is an American cult, and here's how American cults operate, and here's how they relate to Christianity. Like, that could have been amazing, especially given that the ending says, by the way, the cult was right. Like, this is the story. This is the story of a guy who is genuinely touched by the divine, who is about to wipe the earth clean, and you saw him as an American, and this is how he would build an American cult. And because they are not sincere about it, they can't say that with it. So that like the ending is just like, this is stupid. Why was I even in this game? Right? Like this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen.
One-hit KO shovel. It's a fun fuck around game.
Oh,
the fucking around in this game is unparalleled. You can get chased by a wild turkey.
I love, there's nothing better than a Far Cry like outpost that you're just like cracking for the first time. It just feels good. It feels great.
It's fun to mess around in this game. It's very incoherent from a messaging standpoint and very funny because like we're going to do this set in Montana and we are we're French from French Canada or France. And we don't really know what we're doing here, but we know Americans love guns and Jesus. So,
and that's such a shallow take on it. It really does not feel authentic at all. Not even to like, obviously I do get why the pastor is one of the side characters in it, because you want to be able to say, hey, there's people here that religion is important to them, but they're not in the cult. Okay, but that means the cult has to like be a particular way and the pastor has to be a particular way, and they have no intention of going into that. So it came off feeling very inauthentic in my opinion.
They don't want to explore that at all. They really just want to use it as like the backdrop for having this aesthetic, and it's purely aesthetics. Politicians.
That's a good way to put it.
I don't remember that one, but there was some politics that they
I did kind of love the politician side quests. I'm remembering them now.
Yeah.
There's like a local kind of boss hog type political figure.
Right.
And he has like a dumbass son that wants to do various things, and so you have to get him in and out of trouble. His
large adult fail son.
His large adult son. Yeah. Okay, that part was real. Top Keck, you raise a good point. That's all. There is a good point. We have lots of large sons in America.
Political nepotism, large adult sons. That is real. That's the most authentic American. And that and the cold guy kind of reminded me of Jared Leto. That was kind of real too. I've met Jared Leto, and not met, but I've seen him in concert. Because concert, and the way people react to that in person, kind of like I haven't talked to him or anything, but I mean I've seen him in concert, and people like are weird about him. you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what this guy reminded me of as the cult leader. He has that same kind of similar look to the dude and just like has this like these hangers on, you know?
Yeah.
So there's some things in there that struck me as somewhat authentic, but as like a cult philosophy, it's never really coherent what's going on there.
The vibe of the enemies is completely off.
Yeah.
It's just like it looks great and feels great to run around, but it's not. I really did not feel like it was telling me anything real about America.
But that in and of itself is so interesting. I don't know how else to describe it. Like just seeing how we look like from the outside, and like this is it. You got guns and you got a lot of trees.
Indeed.
Oh yeah, famously not political, because a lot of people are like, "There's no politics in Far Cry." They do their best not to make it political, you know, even though the whole concept
they're not
of
wrong.
It is political.
They're not wrong.
Do you want to talk about Duke? The Duke.
I do. This is like another satirical American game. We don't need to. We can like get through some of these quickly now that we're kind of getting towards the end.
I would love to talk about the Duke. I don't, you know, but let's talk about the Duke. Go on.
So, like it's satirical, like, but all of the like locations in Duke Nukem 3D are recognizable, like American locations.
Yeah.
The movie theater, the bank, they're all kind of like a little bit, you know, extracted from 80s action movies, just like Duke himself is. So it has that same sort of copy of a copy feel. Today it can feel like a little bit exhausting to be like, okay, sure, Duke, yes, I've seen Die Hard, okay.
Kex is the only Duke Nukem I played for forever. Have you played DNF? Have you played DNF?
I played DNF all the way through.
Nice,
I have played DNF all the way through.
Nice. That's another Vegas. Another Las Vegas.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. That is another Vegas. That's a great point. Yeah. And I do think that, like, from a satirical point of view, like Duke Nukem is fine. Like, I think it did truly feel like, and this was, of course, in the time period where Duke Nukem 3D was the height of interactivity in 3D games.
Right.
So, like, going into the movie theater or going into the bank or going in, you know, down the street or even, you know, the goddamn sewer levels. You know, like you're like, okay,
mirrors.
They got working mirrors, man. Like it's good. So hail to the king, baby,
DNF
is what I've got to say to that.
Carries a lot of that satirical, like, fuck around with, like, the toilets and the pool table that works and the pinball machines that work and, like, weird ass shit like that. Like, they like that. Like,
it's a very lowbrow satire, but, like, in terms of recognizing what it's satirizing and, like, really making a good stab at depiction of it, I think it did a very good job.
My next slide is a bombshell, so I don't know if we want to sit because I'm wearing ads again, so I'm gonna let this go for a second. But
all right, sounds good.
At some point, I'm gonna stream DNF because I have a lot of thoughts about it, because it's a very interesting game from, like, a development process standpoint. Because
I agree.
It very famously was remapped and remade multiple times before it finally came to production. So, like. Yep. They basically had a bunch of half-finished. Oh, thank you for the sub, Kek. Thank you, Top Kek. They very famously had, like, a bunch of fucking levels. Oh, we didn't put a slide. Do we have Postal in here? Because you're right, Postal's in this same genre.
Right.
Good,
but you're right. It would be a satirical. Good job, Stone Lion.
That's a good call out. Yeah. Postal's another really good one. Of course, Postal that is authentic as well. Most of those guys are from the U.S. You know. So Postal has that same kind of, like, satirical shoot up the neighborhood kind of vibes.
It's funny that it's called Postal and not, like, student. That tells the era that it's from.
Right, because at the time the concept behind Postal was, like, there was a post office that went crazy and shot a bunch of people, and then there was
workplace shootings. Yeah. Workplace shootings was the topic, not school shootings.
Right, and then they call it going postal. And now people don't go postal; people shoot up schools instead. Wow, how depressing! What a time capsule! What a time capsule that is, unintentionally. But yeah, with Duke Nukem Forever, you have that.
One of my favorite X-Files episodes of all time, Blood, is about a postal worker who's struggling with potentially shooting up his workplace. He's being driven crazy by an evil experiment, and so you're sort of tracking this guy as, you know, Mulder is tracking down, Scully and Mulder are tracking down the evil entity or government conspiracy behind it, and you keep cutting back to this guy who's going more and more crazy, trying to stop from becoming a mass shooter.
That's a really good point. The 90s were a time of like a lot of cushy office jobs, and the economy was doing well, and people were very cozy, and that was why there's so much edgy satire, comparatively maybe.
Yeah.
Like there's definitely a correlation there between like, I want to blow all this nice shit up because fuck this nice shit, right? Yeah, so that's kind of where Postal comes from for sure. And Duke Nukem as well, I think, comes from that, like, I want to be edgy because the world around me, it's very high school idea of being edgy in a way. Like, I want to look at boobies and stick dollars in people's thongs, but like, I'm a fan of like, now we have cottagecore and comfort games. Oh my god, this is too real. You're absolutely right. God.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's definitely a need there. There's definitely a need. All right, we're back.
This is the slide that I thought was going to be a bombshell. I want to talk a little tiny bit about Dustborn.
Do it. Yeah.
I have not played Dustborn. I have seen a lot of videos of Dustborn. I've watched some people play it. And what's interesting about Dustborn is that, once again, it is European people doing a satire of American culture, and a parody of American culture deeply from the outside. So they understand our politics, and they know kind of what's going on, but there's a lot of stuff in it that's not particularly authentic. And I went on a big rant about s'mores in this game. VB knows the rant already, because they're on like a road trip, right? And like the gay road trip is the gay road trip is a genre all in of itself. And like an example of one that is a lot more authentic is the game Get in the Car Loser. I don't know if you've played Get in the Car Loser.
I've played Get in the Car Loser. It's very good.
Very good. And it has that very authentic, like, gay road trip, lesbian road trip kind of vibe, right?
Totally.
This is another one of those road trip games where the vibe is just a little weird, because like they never actually did the road trip. Like that's not experience, And if you've ever like grabbed a girlfriend and drove across the countryside for a couple of years or a couple of weeks or whatever the fuck, I'm gonna leave college for a week and go somewhere weird in the car. Like that's a thing like a lot of people have experienced. I don't know so much anymore what the kids these days do, but like the road trip is like a pretty common, like, young rebellion, let's get in the car and go somewhere and see where we end up kind of story, right?
Yeah.
You just get the feeling that they've never actually really done it because it's coming from a weird place. But what stuck out to me is that they at one point stop and make s'mores, but it seems very clear to me that nobody on the development team knew what a graham cracker was.
Oh no!
Right.
Oh no! Our beautiful American graham crackers were not shown authentically.
I lectured about this on the stream before, so I won't go into it again because people know about my graham cracker rant. But like, yeah, it's a weird thing for somebody to wrap their brain around, right? Because what's a cracker? Well, a cracker is normally like a savory, overcooked bread, but a graham cracker is more sweet. It's more like a cookie. But it's more like a biscuit at the same time. A graham cracker is a weird, purely American thing.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. That is a huge, oh my gosh. When
I first saw that scene, it bugged me. I was like, you guys don't know what a s'more
whatever
is.
Country they're from. Okay, invade whatever country they're from.
We
need to airdrop graham crackers.
Cookies. Now let's talk about
That's right.
authentic American stuff. Like, for example, music, right? Music's good.
Yeah, right. We talked about this in the context of the South of Midnight. I think on the next slide, I kind of point out that even in the parody games, GTA, Saints Row, Fallout, they all have really, really close attention to music in those games.
Absolutely.
Your discussion of like having an indie band on the soundtrack, right? Like I think back to like the GTA San Andreas soundtrack. Just like absolutely iconic 90s
It's a beautiful,
soundtrack.
Perfect soundtrack. Some of those songs will like always be associated with that game for me at this point because of what they're playing during this particular time in the game. And there's a part in Saints Row where they do Bismarcky, right? And they all sing along with it. Girl, you got what I need. And you say he's just a friend. And it's like, And also, like, if you're playing Saints Row the Third in particular, and you're missing some of the iconic mic drops in that game,
Yeah,
it's missing something, right? Like when they
it really is.
when they do the Kanye drop when you drop from the plane, it's such a chef's kiss of like how they line that up. Like, ooh,
Totally.
it's good, it's so good. And then the fourth game, of course, has a "You've Got the Touch."
Oh right, yeah, You've Got the Touch. Yeah, I remember that.
An extended joke just for me.
But I think about like you know, the Fallout series has its iconic music as well. You know, the "Ain't That a Kickin' in the Head" trailer from New Vegas,
I mean,
as well.
Yeah,
As well as Big Iron, of course. Big Iron.
I was gonna say Big Iron. Yeah. That's one of Gargura's favorites. Once again, salute to the master there. But yeah, yeah, the Big Iron was such a big hit, like outside of Fallout, that people were like, "Oh, it's that song from Fallout," and it kind of got a little revival. People were singing it and stuff at karaoke.
Everybody, yeah. I mean, God bless Marty Robbins. I'm thrilled that a new generation discovers him. I would like to point out, I think both GTA and Saints Row specifically do a really good job of giving you the broad range of American music.
I think so.
So like GTA, you'll have like your hip hop, you'll have your R&B station, you'll have your country station, you'll have like a classical station, you'll have an NPR like jazz type station, an electronic type station. All of these things are genres that have specifically American contributions to them. And yet they're all like, you know, it's an extremely varied musical backdrop.
Absolutely. And it's made more authentic by having that like country station in there and like the different stations they have. Yeah. Do we have Binfinite on here? I don't know if you even know if we have Binfinite on here, Bioshock Infinite. I could talk for hours about Bioshock Infinite. It's very American.
They're sort of
there's this like
they're alternate sort of their alternate music, the 19-teens version of pop songs. Yeah, I found that to be really interesting.
Those are so cool to have. Particularly when they do like the barbershop quartet, the Beach Boys barbershop quartet.
Beach Boys,
it's really cool. It's such a cool.
God only knows.
Just wanna have fun, and you're like on the boardwalk and you hear the music playing, but it's like off because it's out of time. It's very cool.
Yeah,
it's very cool.
Yeah, it's a really really good effect.
And the locations,
Yeah, so I wanted to talk about this because I think a lot of times this is something that I complain about it. I think I started this stream by complaining about it. That the that people see America as one of like 4 locations that are easily accessible to media, like New York City. You know, Toronto stands in for every American city on television. You know, all of that type of thing.
Thank you, Kat, for the gift sub too.
Exactly. But it's extremely varied, right? Like I live in the desert, and one thing that I think Breaking Bad, a show I don't love, but one thing I like about it a lot is Albuquerque is depicted really, really thoroughly in that show over the many seasons that it had. How many other shows can you think of that's like, hey, here's the Southwestern desert. The Southwestern desert has a particular look to it. The sun looks a particular way. The sky looks a particular way. The desert is a particular way. And like a lot of times people just don't realize that there's a huge desert in the southwest part of the country. I love it here. But it's very easy to just sort of skip over it and be like, oh, it's California again. It's New York again. It's the East. It's the Midwest. You suggested Hunt Showdown.
Yeah, just a lot of different examples of like extremely big map areas that are different from other parts of the country, right?
Yeah, that are specific. To. I think I actually have been playing Days Gone recently, and
cool.
Driving like I have this big Harley Davidson, and I'm taking it along these dirt roads through endless forests of the Pacific Northwest, and it just truly does feel like you can get lost up there. And which is exactly what it's like in real life. So I think I don't love Assassin's Creed 3, but I do think its depiction of like the colonial wilderness is really interesting. You know, the wildlife, the different roads and so on, and you disappear into it so quickly.
Well, as we know, Assassin's Creed is under a unique obligation to be as authentic as possible at all times, lest it enrage any. No. Assassin's Creed is another fucking Ubisoft game where they just
I
pastiche
know.
a bunch of shit together that doesn't match. It's not authentic. It's not
authentic.
It's not gonna be. It's just not. They have some bits and pieces of Philadelphia in there, and I don't know.
Can I tell you about? Okay, all right. I know we're going way long, but
well, that's what we're supposed to. We can go till midnight if you want.
Okay, all right. Assassin's Creed Liberation. I'm going to tell you about one mechanic that just took my breath away.
Yeah.
And this was, I believe, Ubisoft Zagreb or something like that. This was not one of the main Ubisoft studios. So, did you ever play Liberation?
No, but I've watched it played.
Okay. So the mechanic that just made my jaw drop was the disguise mechanic.
Oh, right, because she can like kind of blend from person to person depending on her.
She is a light-skinned black woman in colonial New Orleans, and if she dresses in a lady's dress, she is a white lady, and if she dresses in a slave's outfit, she is a slave, and if she dresses in an assassin's outfit, she's an assassin.
Right.
And the guards, authorities, and civilians react different to her in different ways, depending on what she's wearing and what they see her carrying and doing.
That's so clever.
Like, when that mechanic opened up for me, I'm like, is Ubisoft really going to make a statement about like race in America?
Yeah,
like,
that's crazy,
is this really going to happen? And then they didn't really use it except for like just a couple of little minor puzzles. So I was very disappointed
they didn't
in that.
really take it as far as they could have taken it with that.
But like it was so critical to me to be like, oh my God. So really, I can be a lady in a lady's dress and like the other white ladies won't give me any problems. But the only weapon I can carry is like a blow dart.
Right.
Right. You know, the poison in the tip of my umbrella, my parasol is the only thing I can have.
A slave outfit and you're like carrying something, you're invisible. Yeah. You're not even there. Nobody gives a shit about you.
That's right. You can't be in the front rooms of their houses, but if you're standing in their yard carrying a box, you must be there to be carrying a box.
Right. You're supposed to be there.
And it was kind of underdeveloped. I really was hoping it would be something, but it was so like. I jumped out of my chair when that happened.
The whole reason we started talking about this was because of that video about pissing in heavy rain.
That's right. That's right.
So I had to put a slide in here about heavy rain. Heavy rain is a Quantic Dream David Cage game, right?
I think that's right. Yeah.
The concept here is that it's supposed to be set in Philadelphia, but again, this is a French studio making this game. So all the bathrooms look like they would look in a French houses as opposed to and they did like one on location shoot at some point to get some pictures of what Philly actually looks like. And the one bathroom that they got a photo of is like the only authentic bathroom in the game where
Oh no.
Yeah, did you watch that video about pissing in heavy rain? Dude,
no, I didn't watch it. I'm going to though. Now that you've described it.
So this girl, she was meticulous. She went through the game like a dozen times and calculated every single time you could piss, and like where you can piss, and like what it's like. And then at one point, there's this revelation: like every time you see a bathroom in heavy rain, except for one time, or when you go to a public bathroom, the public bathrooms look similar to our public bathrooms, but the ones in the homes, they don't have the sink and the toilet in the same room.
Oh no!
Because in France they don't do that, I guess.
Yeah.
In France they have the toilet and the sink and the toilets in like the toilet closet, and then you walk out to like wash your hands elsewhere. Whereas in this country, the sink is right next to the toilet. You pee and then you wash your hands in the same room. You don't have to touch a doorknob. I don't know what they're doing over there in Europe. But here in a civilized nation, we wash our hands after we go to the bathroom. So, like, first of all, she was just frustrated, like, I can't wash my hands right after I go to the bathroom sometimes because the sink is all the way over there. And then she was like, wait a second. Why is it like this?
That's incredible.
Yeah, and so I started to realize, like, the ways in which heavy rain is not Philadelphia. Even though it's supposed to be in Philadelphia. And if you look in the background in parts of the game, you can see like signs that say Philadelphia, like it's clearly supposed to be.
Right.
But it's not in so many ways that matter, and it's very funny.
That's awesome. I didn't realize that at all. I haven't played that game, so
I like Heavy Rain a lot. Now, one of the lead cops in Heavy Rain has this like really deep Boston accent. He's like a park the car and Harvard Yard kind of guy, you know? And it's very funny to listen to him ramble on about his various theories about the murders. But yeah, the game is supposed to be set in Philly. Sean, Jason. Yeah, they get a lot of things that are very inauthentic and weird in Heavy Rain. Like even like your kids, like your children don't behave the way real children would behave. It's like your kid is supposed to be, I don't know, 10, but he acts like a 3-year-old, like kind of that kind of fucking vibe. Like it's really off in a lot of really strange ways. It's a very surreal game. It's fun. It's one of those games that I like in spite of myself because I know that it's kind of bad, but at the same time, yeah. So I haven't played Detroit, but I think it's set in Detroit, is my understanding. A city in which I've also spent some time. Because it's another Midwestern city.
Well, Detroit's like a futuristic type game, though. Like, if you look at like Deus Ex, there's a lot of American locations there, but it's all the future.
Yeah. But Heavy Rain is supposed to be set in the contemporary, so that's where it comes. Right. That's where it comes out when something is a little bit off, and you're like, wait a minute, that's not what it would really tell. Like. Yeah, exactly. So that's one of the primary examples of like, we tried to do America, but we didn't necessarily do our research. That's what I wrote. It's supposed to be Philadelphia. The bathrooms are wrong. It's not Philadelphia. So let's talk about Silent Hill. What's the deal with Pennsylvania? Yep. Let's get into it. Let's get into Silent Hill.
Right. So Silent Hill is like very obviously supposed to be the town in Pennsylvania that had to be abandoned because of an underground coal fire.
It's not. You're wrong. Sorry.
Oh, it's not?
Well, let's unpack that because this is a very common misconception. Okay, the town.
Well, it's in the movie that way. It's in the movie that way, and I think by the time it gets around to 2 or 3, I think they have started incorporating the fire into it.
In the movie, it's set in a version of Centralia, Pennsylvania, which is not super far from Philadelphia. I'm coming in with a bomb. So in the movie, Christoph Gans, I believe the director, really wanted to use that idea of ash falling from the sky as opposed to snow, and the surrealness of like the fire burning beneath the town as like a symbolism for like that was a cool parallel to what's going on in Silent Hill. It was never part of the original intention for Silent Hill. So when people say like Silent Hill is based on this PA town, not until Homecoming, which is the one that they made after the movie came out. And Homecoming very explicitly does the coal fire.
I thought it was in 3 too, for some reason.
Not really. No, 3 is really a lot more about Heather, and just in general.
Sure, and it's not like set there, but I was maybe I'm just remembering a readable from Homecoming, and it was I'm remembering it being in 3 or something. I love these games.
Weird lines. Silent Hill is set in the same place the Kindergarten Cop was set. That's weird. That is the same exact billboards and stuff in the classrooms if you look.
Nice.
They use the same asset. They were like, we're just going to take this screenshot of Kindergarten Cop and recreate it in Silent Hill. So Silent Hill, I feel strongly, originally was more of a New England than Pennsylvania.
Interesting.
Than more Pennsylvania. Okay. Especially if you've ever been to like a Maine, like Stephen King. It's very Stephen King influenced, much like Alan Wake is.
Yeah.
So I think that there's a lot more Maine influence in Silent Hill. And if you've been to like one of these little Maine tourist towns, the vibe is very similar, except for like the whole demons thing. But like the mismatched signs, the weird little diners, all the local businesses. There's not like any big billboards in Maine because they have like regulations against that kind of thing. So there's not a lot of large sight lines in Maine. When it gets foggy, it gets really
lake resort
foggy.
Feels
The
lake resort feels like something you'd find in one of those like northern forests.
And there's a lot of Stephen King references in especially the first game as well.
Yeah.
Like and other sci-fi authors are also name-checked.
It might be Homecoming I'm remembering now that I think about it.
You're thinking of Homecoming. Because Homecoming is the one that was made by American developers after the movie came out.
After the movie. Interesting.
And they explicitly used the Centralia reference and the burning coal imagery in that. So it's a very different vibe, Homecoming. Homecoming is also much more American. The main character of Homecoming is like a soldier. He's a lot better with guns. He's more of an action hero than any previous Silent Hill protagonist, and the vibe is very different in Homecoming. Yeah, I've played both Homecoming and like the first 3 Silent Hills in The Room, so like I'm pretty Silent Hill first. Pretty Silent Hill.
Yeah, me too. I love Silent Hill. I love Silent Hill. Played a lot. My next VN project is a Silent Hill fan game. So it should be
say no
good.
more. I'm into it. I'm excited.
All right. So let's.
And now
then.
A digression about Pittsburgh for some reason. Why do I talk about Pittsburgh? Because you put a slide in here about the game Night in the Woods.
Yeah.
So shoot with what you were going to say about it, then I'll throw in what I was going to say about it.
I was going to say that this actually reminded me a lot of Kentucky Route Zero in that it depicts a particular class in America, I think, very well. You're sort of stringing together jobs that can't quite get there. People who have achieved some sort of stability kind of like look at this class like, they kind of look down their nose at them a bit. Truly, it's I think we mentioned in the conservative part that stability is what the conservative like vision of a good life is. But even outside of that vision, like there's the instability of having a crap job that doesn't quite pay enough. Like that kind of is what the Night in the Woods experience is. So that's what I was trying to get at with putting it in here, was that it has a very authentic, in my view, picture of American class relations, at least in terms of that type of job.
I completely agree with that. And of course, the reason it's so authentic is because, the primary writer developer is like from that region of the country, that Ohio, Pennsylvania region. And I'm looking up, I think it's Scott Benson. Yeah, there we go. So I sometimes still follow Scott on Blue Sky. He's a very good poster. And lived in Pittsburgh for a considerable amount of time, so that's the kind of region that I think
humble brag.
Yeah, right. Well, not a humble brag. I'm saying that's where he lived. Right. So when you're saying like what region of the country is this, very much like Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Warren. Nice. To an extent, it's kind of like that aging out steel town in the Midwest East side of the country.
Yeah.
Like, I'm placing myself in a particular place in time, but I think this game also like places itself in a particular place in time, which is to say like, it's kind of a town past its prime and nobody really knows what to do because the industry isn't there anymore. And like, that's the vibe you're picking up on with the authenticity here. Yep. It's about the poverty feeling of what you do when all of those manufacturing and steelworker jobs have run their course and everybody's trying to figure out how to redefine where you are.
Yeah, and who you are.
And that's why I put it in. I said, well, we gotta just talk about Pittsburgh because that's kind of where this game is set regionally. And I think it's not so much about the map in this case because there's not much of a map in this game. This game is very much about dialogue and, moving through, but it's about a place and time for sure. And it's not necessarily specifically that city because there's, different inspirations. It's that feel of that aging like industrial town.
Yeah. And the instability that comes with that.
And in those places, how close you are to leaving the town and being in the fucking forest.
Yeah.
Right? Which is such a uniquely American experience. Like, well, I left the city and it's rural. I'm out of town now and there ain't shit for miles. There's a shitty diner and that's it. Right?
Yeah.
So I think there's don't they go get donuts at this like weird little truck stop?
It's been a while since I played it.
Like it says a lot about like our car culture, even how far apart things are, just a lot.
My job took me to a town. I used to have a job that took me regularly to a town where the literal only place to buy food in the town was a Subway at a truck stop. There was no grocery store. There was no like restaurant, no diner. It was that small.
Yeah.
So unless you were going to drive an hour to the next town to go to the grocery store, you were having Subway at the truck stop.
Right, and in the Midwest, there's a lot of shitty little towns like that, like where there's a Walmart and a high school and a ball field where the kids play after high school, and then I don't know, maybe a Dunkin' Donuts, and then they're done. That's it. That's all there is in this whole fucking town. Yeah, so they kind of pick up that vibe very well. And then Saints Row the Third is also fucking Pittsburgh. I played the game, and it's weird because most GTA games are set in like, you know, Miami, New York.
Right, Miami, New York,
LA.
California, LA. Yeah.
Saints Row is set in Steelport, which is a steel town.
Right.
And it's full of this like old industry, so I got a good shot of it just so you can see the vibe. It's like this very old industry, kind of like smokestacks billowing into the atmosphere. It's extremely Pittsburgh. It's very almost dead fucking on, except it's got a couple weird little quirks that they threw in. Like they've thrown in like a casino because they need to have like the casino game, and they've thrown in like a you know, but the backdrop of it has that vibe. And I even grabbed the map because I wanted to show like this. If you cut Pittsburgh out.
Oh, God, I didn't realize that's what Pittsburgh looked like.
That's what Pittsburgh looks like. Now, that's if it was an island, right? Like, it's landlocked. Sure. It's not an island. And Steelport is an island. So, like, Steelport is an island. But Pittsburgh is not. But what's unique about the city is that it has a large amount of waterways.
Yeah.
And the most bridges of any American city.
Wow.
So, when you're driving around in that city, you're constantly going across a bridge and getting stuck on the wrong side of the water, or you're going through a tunnel and getting stuck on the wrong side of the water. So that Saints Row has that very similar vibe with all these bridges where you're, oh God, I'm across the bridge now. Well, fuck me. You know, like you have that same kind of like this district by water. And that's the reason I took this map shot here, because it shows you like what it looks like to drive through. And the vibe is very similar. So I just thought that was interesting. It was one of those situations where I'm pretty sure I got into a conversation with somebody who worked on the game, where they're like, "Oh yeah, that was a big inspiration for us." And I can't.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I can't. But it was a vibe that I picked up. Now it's got some New York to it, right? Because you've got like the Statue of Liberty. It's got some casino to it, so it's not like purely 100%. And the fact that it's on the water and is a port town, which is not. Yeah. So there's like a couple different American cities that have been pastiched into Steelport. As opposed to GTA, where it's like, this is Miami, right? Because Steelport is an island. It doesn't exist in any meaningful way. You know, it's not really a place. But there's American cities that are pastiched into it. One is New York, and then there's also, Last of Us has a road trip across all of America. So I can't just call out one city in this game. Although I thought it had the least good Pittsburgh of any of the games I played that was set in Pittsburgh. Just because it didn't spend enough time. But there's like an article that I went to that actually shows like somebody going through the city and trying to find the same landmarks in the city as they did in the game. So I grabbed
that's fun.
Some images to show like what's same and what's different. So if you look here, you can see that exact same bridge in this shot. Yeah. It's identical. It's exactly the same. So that they absolutely nailed. But then you can see that in the real world, that's right on the waterfront. And here they kind of drained some of the water, I feel.
And the buildings are shorter for sure.
Right.
Unless that's supposed to be an elevated highway, I guess. Maybe they're not as short as I mean,
it's not the exact same location either. It's just a similar angle. It's just a similar angle on the same bridge, so it's not the exact same location. There are some locations that are the exact same location. Like if you get a shot from this and then you show it side by side, it's the same, which is cool. But they spend most of their time there like going through a hotel in The Last of Us, and they're like crawling through this broken hotel, and so you don't see as much of the city. So I think it's very good when you're in the outdoor areas, and that the indoor area doesn't really feel like any place in particular to me. But
interesting.
I do like the way that they portrayed like the bridges and the water and stuff. I wish I had seen like more of it, because it was, you know, it's always cool to like see a place you've been recreated. But they go from place to place very quickly, right? So they spend a lot of time in Boston, And their Boston is not super duper authentic. It's really kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
But they use a lot of location shoots, so they took a lot of real pictures and recreated.
Right, so it's a little bit kind of makes it feel a little bit like it's kind of like the Division 2. It's not that the geography is perfect, but when you get to a location, it looks like what it should look like.
Looks like what it should look like. And like this one building, like on the right here, it does look really similar to a similar building. So that's kind of cool. But I want to go through these because there's more shots, but I also don't want to open up my web browser when I've got this thing on the table. Like, I'll link the article later for people to browse through because I was like, I want to find some reference shots comparing their, like what the place really looks like compared to what it looks like in the game, because there's some stuff that's very bang on and then there's some stuff that's not so much. And I think a lot of that is just like what works for the gameplay, right? Like, does it work for the gameplay to have a big river here? Maybe not.
Exactly. They need to have something to like, go find the ladder to clamber up this building, etc.
So we're getting down to the end of our formal presentation, and it's almost 11 o'clock, so I think we're just going to hit the grab bag. I also put in a slide about Coffee Talk, made by Indonesian developers primarily, but set in Seattle. I like this game a lot, but every once in a while, I'm like, oh, these guys aren't American. Whoops. It's kind of set in a kind of Shadowrun-y kind of. There's elves and orcs and demons in Seattle. Like it's like a cozy Shadowrun.
I just noticed the girls' horns.
Yeah,
okay.
It's like a cozy Shadowrun. Are you feeling me?
Yeah. I'm with you. It's an urban fantasy. It's like an urban fantasy world.
It's urban fantasy world. So if there was a coffee shop in an urban fantasy world, and you can see it's Seattle because you can see the tower right there.
Space Needle.
But then somebody comes in and starts talking about her idol career.
And
immediately I'm like, oh, you're not Americans.
Okay, Indonesia.
Yeah,
all right.
Indonesia. we don't have those in America, but thank you for the effort. You're almost there. And then she's like, I'm starting my idol carear.
Like,
what the fuck are you talking about? It's not a thing.
They have those where the orcs come from.
Yes. You
that must be it.
Suspend disbelief a little further and imagine that wherever the cat girl comes from, they still have idol careers in Seattle. But you had me until then, and then you lost me because that's not what it is. And that's those weird little we didn't check, we don't know, There's another game that I played. I can't remember the name of it, but it was done very much by Australian devs, and it's very Australian. And I felt like nobody talked normal in the whole game. Like nobody talks like a normal person. Well, they probably talk like normal Australian people, and I just don't know what Australian people talk like because I'm not from there.
So I threw in another Ubisoft property, Watch Dogs, which has Chicago and San Francisco.
Yeah.
I have a feeling about both of those cities as portrayed. First of all, that although this would be totally inappropriate to actually model, one thing that really struck me about it was how light the traffic was.
Oh yeah, true, right. Oh my god,
you couldn't have real traffic from either of those cities in these games.
Oh, San Francisco for sure. No.
And the one thing that Ubisoft I like, those cities are cities with real public transportation.
Right.
There's lots of American cities that don't have real public transportation.
Yeah, but San Francisco has pretty good public transportation. Instead of Chicago.
Not bad.
Yeah.
So does Chicago. Chicago. But the fact that you're in a car for all of these, most of these two games, did strike me as funny. It's fun. Right. Like it's not a bad thing because you got to have car chases and you got to have the bad guys chasing you and you're trying to escape from them with your hacker phone.
Yeah.
But it did make me laugh a little bit.
Right. The mood-wise, I thought they did a pretty good job with Chicago.
I thought they did a good job with both.
Yeah.
I think they did a good job with both. I think Watch Dogs 2 is like an underrated game, just speaking broadly.
I think it's by far the superior Watch Dogs game, in my opinion.
It really is.
Even though the open world is a little bit emptier, I think the protagonist is way more likable, the story is way more interesting, the side characters are more fun. I really didn't like the first Watch Dogs game, even though I did play it a little bit. I like the second one a lot more, and I played the second one on stream like a long time ago, because I do think it's one of those underrated games for sure. I haven't played this. This is you.
Oh, Black Dahlia. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Take-Two Interactive, before they became a publisher, developed their own games, and one of them, as you can see, this one is from Interplay, too.
Oh, okay.
This was published by Interplay, developed by Take-Two. This was a full-motion video game back from the height of full-motion video.
I love FMV. I love it. It's so corny.
If you can find this, by all means, I do really recommend it. It's kind of takes the murder of Elizabeth Short, the Black Dahlia, as sort of the jumping off point for this sort of alternate, sort of history / noir game. You're a FBI agent in California during World War II, and you uncover a group of Nazi occultists.
Oh, cool.
And the Dahlia's murder is caught up in their evil rituals, which I found to be very interesting from an authenticity perspective in two respects. First, it's not very authentic to have an FBI agent in California kind of doing anything other than investigating Japanese Americans to decide if they're going to go to a camp.
Oh, no.
That's the main thing. That's God. Kind of the main thing the FBI did in that place and time.
Oh, dear.
But like, skip that for a minute. One thing that I did find very interesting is California during World War II was indeed the location of a pretty significant Nazi underground conspiracy of sympathizers with Nazi Germany. And it was also kind of the center of the occult in America at the time. So these two things very casually are oh yeah, there's a bunch of evil people, in California in the 40s. Okay, yeah, that is actually true. That's all real.
That's crazy.
But,
do you remember what your last slide? I don't know what happens when you reach the end of the slides. I wonder if it's just going to crash the desktop. I guess we'll find out. Mafia.
So Mafia 1 and 2, we don't need to go too much into this. This is kind of another GTA type of game. Right. But I did think that 1 and 2 specifically with their Empire Bay, it drives me crazy to drive across it because you'll be in New York and then you're in Los Angeles and then you're in the suburbs.
Oh, that's crazy.
And then you're in a Chicago type city, and you just your brain just starts seizing up as you drive across it. They're great games. Don't get me wrong, they're really good. I would say Mafia 2 has probably the best traditional crime story of almost any video game. But in terms of authenticity, 1 and 2 are I don't know, America cities are like this. Just put a bunch of stuff together. I'm like, oh, no.
Yeah, wait, Mafia 3 is more clearly New Orleans? Yeah, it's on the slide.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's they really did try to make it a lot more consistent in Mafia 3, which I think
I've never played these, but it's so hilarious. Because in the same way that Saints Row is well, this part's Pittsburgh, but this part's New York, and this part's LA. And this is very much oh, this part's New York, but this part's San Francisco, but this part's Boston. Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah. That sounds crazy. I feel like I would go. I would just be where am I? Confusing. It's America.
Every once in a while, you just most of the time you're just playing the mission and you're enjoying yourself. But every once in a while, you'll turn a corner and you'll just be where am I? What is this place?
It was mentioned very early in the chat. Metal Wolf Chaos.
Yeah, FromSoft. This is the real Elden Ring right here.
This is the most authentic American game ever made. But
That's true.
They got the fight house. What more do you need?
Yeah. When I told my friend we were doing this stream, he's like, "Well, you got to put Metal Wolf Chaos in, bro." I'm like, "Okay, yeah."
Put Metal Wolf Chaos. What more can one even say about Metal Wolf Chaos? If you're not familiar with Metal Wolf Chaos, it's an absolutely gonzo bullshit mecha game where the White House turns into a mecha. You fight the evil vice president. Is that how it goes?
I believe so. You are the president in this game, and you do pilot a giant mech. Mm-hmm. There's actually a number of games where you're the president. Ni no Kuni 2, you're the president. It's Metal Wolf Chaos, extremely accurate, yes. Flawless, authentic depiction of America.
For sure.
And then the last one,
no complaints.
Yeah, for sure, no complaints. Resident Evil 1 through 3 and 7. It's funny that they skipped.
I love what you wrote on this slide. There's no way Midwestern cities look like this. Am I eating crazy pills? Yeah, well, yeah.
For especially the originals. I think the remakes do a little bit of a bit of a better job at being like, okay, yeah, the gas station is like in the middle of nowhere, that type of thing. But the originals, you're just very much like, there's nothing like this. This exists only in a horror movie world. 7 is probably the best in terms of like a big rambling rural mansion, but 1
Yeah.
through 3 are just like, no thanks.
1 is very specifically set like just in a mansion, kind of in the middle of nowhere. And 2 and 3 are the ones that are kind of in Raccoon City, and Raccoon City like makes no sense at all from a layout perspective. Like it's just whatever makes the horror game work is how they've laid out Raccoon City. But like if you were to try to live in Raccoon City, I feel like you'd have a really bad time. It's a perfect place to get eaten by zombies, and not a perfect place to like go buy groceries.
When I was writing this slide up, I realized that like between 3 and 7, they weren't in America.
No, they weren't.
They just weren't. Like there's one branch.
Spain, I want to say. Yeah.
So 4 is in Spain, 5's in Africa. 6 has one branch that is briefly in a college town in the Northeast. Right. Not too bad as far as that segment goes. But you're not like truly in, like of course Code Veronica is on a weird island.
Yeah, it's a weird one. Like a one-off.
Yeah. Honestly, I feel like Code Veronica is the one that's screaming out for a remake in my view. I loved that game when it was coming up.
And I don't think there's a slide about it, but Dead Rising is set in a mall, and it's
that's right. Dead Rising has a mall and a Vegas equivalent, right? Yes, both of those are fun American playgrounds.
Very
to be sure.
American in that case, and again, it's a very distorted through a Japanese lens kind of view of the shopping mall. Yeah, Williamette. Yeah, that's right. I think that's right. Because it's a distorted kind of like, do they have these great big shopping areas in America? And it's sort of a little bit weird how it's laid out and everything. But I think there's something about it that does resonate because we have been to those places, big shopping centers like that.
It's funny because as malls have declined, Dead Rising 2, which puts its mall in the context of a Vegas sort of resort casino, that is more correct. Like that's kind of where the shopping mall has survived, where it has fallen off in other parts of the country.
Yeah, there's not so much that traditional, like, I feel like the shopping mall is something for which like younger people have a nostalgia because the era of the mall is over, Yeah. It was kind of at its height, like in the 80s and 90s. And you can still go to those places. Like you can go to a shopping mall, but it's just so empty now. And like every store is Funko Pops. I'm not even kidding, dude. Like every store is either closed or Funko Pops. And like all the stores are selling Funko Pops.
In the city where I live, there used to be 5 decent sized malls, and this is I describe it as a small American city. 5 malls. There are 2 left, and of those 2, they are both half empty. One is empty from like the vertically, like all the stores are now on the first floor. It used to be 2, and in some places even 3 stories tall. So like it is definitely on the decline.
The mall killed Main Street, then Amazon killed the mall. Pretty much, because anything that you'd want to buy that isn't something you have to try on, which is, but even then, like these days, there's less like hanging out. A part of it is not even Amazon. Part of it is like trying to keep kids and teenagers out of the space for fear of them shoplifting or whatever. And that also creates there's a whole bunch of factors that built into. I don't know if we're done. Is there another slide or
that's it? That's the last slide.
Done. There we go. There's no more slides.
Yay!
So
all right, chat. Do you have any America suggestions that we skipped?
Yeah, let's talk for a little bit. It's 11 o'clock. By the way, thanks everybody for tuning in today. I always appreciate having a great discussion, and thank you for joining me on this stream.
I had a great time.
Always wonderful to chat with somebody new about some weird shit. So.
I have never been on a stream before, so this was a blast.
Oh, you know what? Come by anytime, chit chat with us on the stream, and play some fucking video games or whatever. I feel like I said, we got a whole bunch of game overthinkers that hang out, and I'm one of the people that knows a lot of, as you can tell, a lot of trivia about a lot of game development stuff. So I don't know. I'm just really curious about how things are made and why they're like that. And I've always been that way ever since I realized games were made by people.
Yeah.
Earthbound's Eagleland is Earthbound is a really good example. Earthbound is a really interesting. Yeah.
That is for sure a Japanese vision of American suburbia.
For real. And then they have this very like, what are the places? Like a suburb, another suburb, but like the circus is in town, desert, big city, big city. That's the vibe. Yeah, like a Japanese.
And then there's a resort. There's a resort near the end.
There's a resort town. The resort town is like on the beach somewhere, and they've got their ice creams and whatnot, and the gelato and everything. Yeah. Hold up, games are made by people? I know. I didn't realize that until later in life. As it turns out, games are made by people.
Yeah, I agree. And Stone Line says a Japanese game featuring the Blues Brothers. Yes, the Runaway Five, one of the best. I love the Runaway Five sequences. They're my favorite. They're kind of they may be my favorite part in any RPG is when the Runaway Five does a concert and then we all jump in the bus and we dance our way past the monsters.
It's such a cool bit. Like they're so loud that they avoid the ghosts and they drive through the tunnel.
Yes. Stone Line asks, what was the game where China or something invaded the U.S. and you were the resistance? Was that just resistance? No, resistance. You were resisting an alien invasion that happened during World War II. And the one you're thinking of is Homefront, in which North Korea invades after a massive cyber attack. And then there's the sequel, which I believe is Homefront. I'm blanking on the name, but there was the sequel had some interesting sort of Far Cry-esque, like, there's 3 fascist outposts in this neighborhood. You have to take them over for the revolution to rise. The first one is an atrocious shooter. Absolutely unbearable.
So it's not terribly good, is what I haven't played either.
Terrible. You will find it on a Steam sale for 99 cents. Like it will tempt you. And you know what? For 99 cents, if you want to like get it and laugh at it, it's content.
There's a lot of games where I wouldn't buy them at full price, but if someone tosses them at me, like for sure I'll give it a shot. Yeah. Try to cash in on the American self-defense attack fantasy. Yeah. There's definitely like a political thing there with like who's
the underdogs.
Safe? Yeah. Who's it safe to call the bad guys? Who is it safe for us to be the little guy up against, and that's one of the challenges I think of military shooters today, and what I was alluding to earlier with like, who are the quote unquote terrorists? Is it safe to shoot the terrorists?
Yeah.
Like,
I do think that there's like, and I think Black Ops, like the Call of Duty Black Ops series, really has this problem that they're always constantly undermining themselves by saying, you thought you were the good guy, but you're the bad guy. You thought you were the bad guy, but you're the good. And like they keep like reversing course with these weird like thriller-esque twists.
People kind of hate being told, like in a video game, that they were the bad guy when they had no choice but to do what the narrative told them to do.
Right, like, we're just gonna play it. I just wanted to play a stupid game. Like, get away from me, man. No, and I totally understand that, but I also see things like, if you look at, say, to go back to Tom Clancy, something that a lot of people don't know about him is that Tom Clancy was a gamer. He is absolutely 100% a gamer. He thought up his novels while playing war games in his garage with his friend Larry Bond, a dentist.
Oh my goodness.
He honestly played games all the time, and he was very involved in the licensing of his properties during the 80s and early 90s before he kind of packaged them and sell them off.
Checks out. Yeah, that does make sense.
The last one he was deeply involved in was the first Rainbow Six game. Mm-hmm. Rainbow Six is a really interesting anti-terror shooter. It's an extremely tactical game in that you need to check your corners, check every room, check behind the doors, and deploy your little crew of guys like along a plan. You have like the blueprints before the mission, but you don't know where the bad guys are, and they're randomized. And you can just get obliterated by one guy. Like if there's a bad guy with an AK-47 and he opens up a door and you're not ready for him to open up that door, it can be game over instantly.
Yeah, Stone makes a good point too. We didn't really talk about Metal Gear Solid, because Metal Gear Solid is
yeah.
not set in America, but it's very much about American politics.
Yeah, Kojima is definitely making commentary on American military and
Right.
American media and so on.
Oh yeah, that's true. The first Metal Gear game is set in Alaska.
Oh right.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're right. It actually is. And then the big island is like off the coast somewhere. Where they set to.
Some fictional island.
Yeah, it's set off. It's official. But the initial base is set in Alaska. So yeah, Nintendo would be mad if I didn't mention Metal Gear Solid is actually South America, at least the first two.
Yeah.
And then the way they dovetail with American politics has been pretty prescient.
Oh, totally. In terms of the misinformation environment, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And the memes becoming reality, and like "Make America Great Again" is literally said in the game.
Yeah, that was it was a Reagan phrase.
Right, it was a Reagan. Yeah, I've read about Spec Ops before. Yeah, Spec Ops I wouldn't say has much Americana, except it's a satire of military shooters. It's kind of a thing about itself. It's kind of a thing about itself. It's more like in the desert and about like how military shooters, but they do that thing where they make you do bad stuff because that's the story, and people either love or hate that. I personally did quite like Spec Ops, but I was coming to it from the perspective of knowing what it was going to be when I went into it. So
yeah, I think that's fair. Anyway, the last thing I was going to say about Rainbow Six. Rainbow Six is explicitly an international anti-terror group. There's like someone on Rainbow Six from England, someone from Mexico, someone from, a whole bunch of different countries that were allied with the United States in the 1980s and 1990s. And Tom Clancy's like, okay, this is what, now that the Soviet Union is gone, this is what the world is going to be. We're going to be like tough. We're going to be tough cops together. But it's still really dangerous, right? It's really, really dangerous because the bad guys can get us anytime they want. So that kind of was that was the last time he was directly involved with any of his games, was like the early Rainbow Six. He then even sat down and wrote a novel he wrote the novel tie-in himself.
Oh, wow.
He licensed the game, then immediately sat down and wrote an 800-page novel.
He really gave a fuck about those particular.
He did.
That's really cool, actually.
He did. Yeah, he's an interesting guy. So one last thing I'll say about him before we wrap up is Larry Bond, the dentist. He also became a game designer, and he produced a submarine game, which is so complex that it actually takes hours and hours and hours to play.
That's crazy.
But of course, in the age of computers, that war game eventually became translated into computers, and it is now available as Harpoon. Which is like, you've never heard of it. It is a naval simulation game. It's one of those that like is played out on like a blue hex map, and you have like 20 things to do per turn. But yeah, Larry Bond is still out there making games too. So or at least he was.
Can we get I'm not sure about this, but I do think the first Rainbow Six novel predates the game.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. And then they did an adaptation of. And then another game predates the novel. So yeah, okay. There's a little bit of time.
So from Tom Clancy's perspective, he's writing the novel while he's shopping the game to like Ubisoft didn't exist at the time. Right. Ubisoft's first game was a DLC, well, the equivalent of a DLC at the time for Rainbow Six.
I see. Interesting. Okay.
That's how he connected with them. But
so they were almost kind of simultaneously being worked on almost.
Yeah, exactly. Well, exactly. He's working on them himself at the same time, but computer games take longer. So.
No more heroes in the chat. No more heroes. That's another Americana Devil May Cry ass kind of vibe. Yeah. Only Travis Touchdown is very specifically like a loser who thinks he's cool, so that's the vibe is a little bit different there.
Little parody, the satirical elements.
It's the satirical America. Yeah.
It's a sort of a Duke Nukem type scenario.
Right. Right. That would definitely belong. Like if we were to shop this at GDC, like we want to put that one in this American satire era there, because that's definitely for sure. Travis Touchdown is another one of those like satire of like disaffected suburbia. Because like what makes No More Heroes click is like that you're just kind of in this dumbass neighborhood and trying to be a big shot, right? Have you played it?
I don't think I've ever played. No, I have not. I have not.
Okay. It's a weird one, and a lot of people didn't really click with it because it's such a weird one. But Travis Touchdown has these really bombastic action levels where he's doing like all these crazy stunts and fighting the bad guys. But then in between, he's got to like take odd jobs to pay the bills because the assassin thing is more of a hobby for him. So you go back and forth between like doing these cool assassination levels and then having to like mow some dude's lawn.
Yeah, that's funny.
So it's a very weird one. It's a strange one. And that either works for you or it doesn't. A lot of people didn't like the downtime in No More Heroes, but I feel like it's part of the satire of No More Heroes. You have to have you have to have the shitty downtime to appreciate the fun parts. You have to have the low parts to make it work. So I actually think the game is really clever and good, but I know it didn't always hit with people because they're like, no, I just want the good bits. Don't make me do these boring bits.
So Lion says he's like Leisure Suit Larry with a lightsaber.
Yeah, he's got a lightsaber. Well, you have to.
And that raises, of course, Leisure Suit Larry.
One of my favorites.
He's in America in all of his games and in Vegas explicitly for a number of them. I guess one of them was on a cruise, but
and one of them was on an island. He goes to a tropical island, so not all of them. I think there's a pretty extended Philadelphia bit in Passionate Patty does a little undercover work. Not that I would know these games completely fucking by heart or anything. But yes,
I love those games. I love those games.
And then the other one is set on a cruise ship, and then there's one at a resort.
Nice.
Yeah.
I love those. I do love those games, and like all of their like weird. I don't want to say weird. I shouldn't say weird. This is just a sex positive game. that has as its premise, what if a guy was horny?
What if a man was horny? It was the first. This is such a weird thing to say, but like it was one of the first video games I remember playing that had more than one woman in it.
Yes.
Because
absolutely.
This game would have a single girl, right? Like, Princess Peach, that's the girl. But like, if you play Leisure Suit Larry, there's a variety of women, and they all have different personalities, and they all have different quirks and kinks,
different jobs and different appearances.
Very much imprinted on me, I think, as like I like this because all these women like have agency in the story.
Totally.
Yeah, and most of them, their agencies, they don't want to sleep with Larry. But you know what? Right. That's the thing, right?
That's okay. That's okay. No, and then like I think the Passionate Patty, my memory of that game is that Patty herself is not the protagonist the whole game. Like
you switch back and forth.
You switch back and forth. I like the idea of Passionate Patty because like she's like, you know what? I'm horny.
Right? Like shock and revelation.
What if a woman was horny?
A woman was also horny and wanted
unbelievable.
To have sex.
We can't believe it. Yeah, it's innovation.
It's a first, folks. It's a first in the world. Women can be horny. It turns out. Yes. No. It's absolutely.
And it's such a fun like. I don't want to. It's weirdly innocent in a way. Like those games are weirdly like.
In a lot of ways, yes.
Wholesome, you know what I mean? Like there's just because Larry is never like an actual threat. You know what I mean? Like he's not trying to just go out and like force anybody to do anything. That's not what he's into.
Larry does take no for an answer eventually, and he gets no a lot.
Yep.
That's kind of the story with Larry.
Yep.
And Larry also, I don't know how much you remember the first game, but like you can get laid pretty early on just by hiring a prostitute.
Very early.
But something feels empty about that. He wants more.
It's not as good.
And it's interesting. Like it's an interesting story. Yeah. He wants to have sex and have it feel like something important and meaningful, and it doesn't feel like it with the
I've actually played the predecessor to Leisure Suit Larry 1, which is Soft Porn Adventure, and it is it's not good. And I think it's because of what you say that Larry is like a genuinely motivated character, whereas in Soft Porn Adventure everything is just like really flatly like mechanized. Yeah. It's just like presenting the woman as a puzzle at its worst level.
Right.
Yeah.
As opposed to the women that they feel like they have more personality and agency in the relationship.
Totally. And that Larry has more personality and agency. Larry feels like a guy who's like actually trying to do something. it is interesting to hear. That's a good analysis. Okay, well, we can talk about.
At
You know
some
what? That's what we're
point
gonna
on
do.
this stream, I'm gonna do Passionate Patty does a little undercover work. I remember the game pretty well, and
Yeah.
I gotta tell you, it did not age well in some parts. For one thing, there is a sex fantasy about Donald Trump in Passionate Patty does a little undercover.
There is. I
can't believe
remember it
somebody
well.
else remembers that. It's so cringe. It's so cringe. I want to play it because it's a
I
time
think you
of
want
time.
no. Here's what you do. You're gonna do a full-on charity stream
Yeah,
in
there
which
we
you
go.
play all 7 games back to back.
There we go. That could be my next subathon. Are we doing all LSLs? Does that include?
All
does that
hilarious.
include? I have played Magna Cum Laude on the stream before, and I am quite fond of Magna Cum Laude. Although it was worse than I remembered, but you do have to be kind of anal retentive about playing MCL because you miss a lot of stuff. But I really like the girls in MCL. I mean, let's not. Have you played? Have you played Magna Cum Laude?
I have, and I've not in years though. So like I'm probably mixing up the girls with the other games, but I have played
it's got the Dungeons and Dragons girl.
Oh, of course.
Who runs D&D for you? He runs Horny D&D.
That's fantastic.
I fell in love with the game when she showed up. I was just like, I can't believe there's a Horny Dungeons and Dragons girl in this game. It's a hard game. But we'll do Passionate Patty for sure because it's incredibly fucking cringe. 2 and 3 are the hardest ones to play because they didn't have like an updated version, so they're very clunky. And Alice does run Horny D&D. A shout out.
Those I would say if you're going to do it for content, like don't be shy about a walkthrough. Just like have the walkthrough up so you don't get yourself like
for
dead.
Sure, because you will definitely like be boring. Like I cannot remember where to go. Yeah.
Yeah. If you like, one thing I learned about early Sierra games, Sierra did not have a testing department. They just didn't. They never play tested their games as players. They only tested them to see if they would run. So like your early Leisure Suit Larry games, just insane. If you think about
the puzzles in some of the King's Quest games are just super goddamn unfair and hard to deal with.
King's Quest, Space Quest, they're just unbearable.
Just rough fucking games to play in the modern era. So walkthroughs mandatory, but probably I could get through 1, 5, and 6 without a walkthrough, probably. 2 and 3 I would be shaky on, and 4, of course, I have memorized completely by heart, and that wouldn't be a problem at all. As I said during my debut, it's one of my favorite games of all time, and I'm sorry that you guys didn't get to experience it. And as it was originally intended to be experienced, which is the fact that the game doesn't exist. There's no 4. There's no 4.
There's no 4. There's no 4.
I think we're ready to wrap up because I'm starting to push away the last ad break so we can have that moment. Thank you for coming by the way, Alice. Hydrate. Okay, well, I'm going to take my last sip of juice and then we're going to move.
I'm going to go have dinner. Thank you very much for having me. This was a lovely time. Thank you so much for being a guest on the stream. Next stream is Thursday. No stream tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm taking a day off. Thank you so much for being here. Guys, thanks so much for being here, chat. Your great contributions in chat. Now, if we shop this to GDC, this was only a 3-hour lecture, so we'll have to make it a little shorter. We'll have to make it a little shorter for GDC. Longer. Whole day. Whole workshop. All right, guys. We're going to write out to Rue because she's also just chatting, and hopefully she's not wrapping up, but I think she might be live for a little bit longer. Thanks for being a guest on the stream. All right, adios. All right, bye. And bye to all of you guys. We will see you on Thursday for Look Outside. And there's going to be a lot of streams the following week because I got time off. So we're going to be doing Murky Diver on Friday, Cyberpunk on Saturday, and Final Fantasy probably at some point. Monday is going to be a chatting. And I'm also going to try to get a little rest before my work week starts up again. No stream the following Tuesday because I'm going to Sailor Moon. Then I'll tell you all about it when I get back. See you later.